Hi, everybody. WAVE 3 News Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harnett with you. We are tracking severe weather across parts of southern Indiana. At this point, no warnings in the immediate Louisville area, but they're not too far away. You can see clusters of thunderstorms back out across parts of Floyd, Harrison, southern parts of Washington County. These storms are producing some large hail, and that's a main threat today. Large hail and damaging winds. Wind speeds with these storms upwards of 60 to as much as 70 miles an hour in a few of the isolated locations, but large hail is certainly possible with these storms. They're moving off to the east, pushing toward Lanesville. One's up in southern Indiana. You can see we now have a tornado warning just being issued. So we're on the air with nonstop coverage now with the tornado warning just south of the Corden area. You see what appears to be a hook forming there. Again, on the north side of this, that would be the area of concern for large hail and heavy rain, but that rotation would be approaching the Webster area. Again, just west of the Louisville area. We're going to stay on the air here as we continue to track this storm. We have been watching these throughout the afternoon. Not the only strong storms around. We have a number of others, and I'll get to those in just a couple of minutes. But at this point, we do have the tornado warning that's been issued for Harrison County until 2:45. Through the afternoon hours, additional storms will continue to develop. Let's jump inside these storms and take a look at some of that rotation that we've been talking about. When you look at the velocity that we so often talk about, you can see that rotation from Dixie pushing just north of Central. That's where we have the greatest rotation, while Corden would be in the zone of heavy rain and the potential for some large hail out of this storm. That rotation would gradually push on off to the east, very close to the Webster area. So if you're near Central, if you're north of the Mockport area, if you're just out to the west of Dogwood or Webster, just south of Corden proper, that's a zone. That is some strong rotation showing up, starting to tighten just a bit on the radar. That's a zone you're going to have to pay close attention to because we do have it showing on radar. It is a radar indicated tornado warning that we have. Back to the radar we go, and I'll just point out that looking at this doesn't look all that ominous when you just look at the reflectivity, but boy, you start to look at the rotation inside that storm, which isn't so far from the radar. That is where we have some low-level rotation showing up. Could very well be a tornado that could touch down. You also see up around the Corden area where we do have the potential for some of that large hail. And I'm going to drag the radar down. Just south of Central and Dogwood, another thunderstorm firing up. That will continue to intensify, moving toward Buena Vista as well as Laconia. That's going to push closer to Rosewood, eventually narrowing in on the western part of Jefferson County. So that's an area that we will be watching closely as this storm makes its way to the east. The storm movement is about east, anywhere between 30 and 40 miles an hour. So the forward motion, it is moving, and that is something that we are noting across parts of Harrison County. Again, tornado warning coming out for Harrison County. That's going to linger just a bit longer until about 2:45 this afternoon. Just along and south of I-64 is where we have the heaviest thunderstorms at this point. I'm going to zoom out because I want to point out that we do have other thunderstorms across southern Indiana that are also causing some problems. High wind and hail, the main threats today. You can certainly see that in a number of places with these severe thunderstorm warnings that are going on across the region. I'm going to zoom into a few of those places for you. The tornado warning that we have, and we've pointed out, is moving toward Webster, just south of Corden. You need to be in your tornado safe place at this point. You've got to take cover. This thunderstorm means business, and we pointed this out the last couple of days, talking about the fact that today would be an alert day, meaning that the weather may impact your plans. In the form of severe weather today, the atmospheric conditions are such where we can see a tornado develop fairly fast. We have wind fields that are certainly capable of producing strong winds. We have enough shear that's capable of producing the spin that we need. And we have a lot of instability. And that reason is why we're seeing so much large hail potential across the area. So I'm going to go storm by storm, and then we're going to zone back into the tornado warning that we have. But let's go across southern parts of Washington County. You see some of those storms near Salem. This is one not far from Martinsburg, Palmyra, likely putting down some small hail there, just north of Bradfordville. That's just north of 150 as you work your way up toward Paoli. Let me zoom back out. I'm going to pull the radar down, so you just have to bear with me as we work our way around the radar. Notice that deep pink. That's an indication that we have a thunderstorm that's billowing up, a lot of instability, and that just means the storm is tall and we have hail. That color, when it's bright, bouncing back to the radar, means that the radar beam is hitting something and coming back that's dense. And that would be hail or very heavy rain. And it's likely that we have some heavy rain in the red and the potential for some very large hail in that purple or pinkish color just south of Martinsburg. Let's go back to the north. We'll drag the radar back down. Thunderstorms developing near Farabee, New Philadelphia, New Salem, pushing on to the north. Now, we get up around Chestnut Ridge. This is right along I-65. Again, you see those deeper pink colors near Crike Corner. That is indeed another potential area to see large hail. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue for that area, and you see the latest one blinking there across parts of and there it comes. There's the latest warning. North Vernon pushing over into Jennings County. All right, so those are some of the storms that we have across parts of southern Indiana with the potential for large hail. And in addition to that, the thunderstorms have a decent amount of wind. The tornado warning that we have is across parts of Harrison County, just west of Louisville. Let's go in a little closer to that. And with that one pushing close to the city, we'll have to watch it very closely. Right now, it's over a very rural area. However, if it holds together, this would impact a very populated area across western Jefferson County. So you're going to have to stay with us here over the course of the next 30 minutes or so as we track the evolution of this storm. Again, we're still noticing, even on the reflectivity, a little bit of hook in there. What that means is wind flow into the storm creates that notch and then the outflow. With that said, that is rotation, which could possibly be a tornado. Heavy rain on the north side, the potential for hail. Now, we don't see any of the purples or the pinks that we pointed out there, but nonetheless, we could have some hail pushing across the Corydon area over toward Lanesville. Let's go back to our toolbox. We'll put on the, in fact, let me just show you the hail scope first. So let's look at the hail, and then we'll get into the velocity where we have the greatest rotation. Notice that hail, upwards of golf ball size hail, possible not far from Corydon. We have to assume that some of that is melting as it moves through. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and take a look back to the velocity, and on the velocity, notice the brighter colors. Strengthening. That means we have the rotation tightening. That means we have a real potential to see what could be a tornado touchdown across parts of Harrison County. This would be very close to the Corydon area and pushing through Dogwood and Webster. You should be in your tornado safe place at this point. That's the lowest level. On the big board, we have the tornado warning Harrison County for 39 more minutes. It goes until 2:45. We have additional severe thunderstorm warnings. Here's the view live from Corydon. So this is from our SkyTrack camera out of Corydon, and you'll see that we have heavy rain. Tough to see hail sometimes. I don't see any large hail. It would be ripping the leaves off of the tree there. But nonetheless, if you are in Harrison County, you need to be in your tornado safe place. That's a basement or a storm shelter if you have one. That's the center area of the structure you're in, away from those walls. Oftentimes it's a bathroom, it could be a closet, it could be under a staircase. That's where you need to be at this point. The difference between a watch and a watch means it's possible, a warning means it's happening. We have a tornado warning for Harrison County. Get in your tornado safe place. Back to the radar we go. Severe thunderstorm warnings coming out across parts of Wave Country today. Here's the latest warning, and you can see this one is in Washington County. Remember, we were lifting the radar up. We said, hey, there's potential here too. And indeed, a new warning has come out not far from Canton. This is just off to the north and east of the Salem area, New Philadelphia, as well as Gibson, right along 56. Heavy rain and hail, wind speeds 60 to 70 miles an hour. Back to the radar we go. Let's zoom back out. I'm going to take you to our home view. As we go home, you'll see on the radar a number of severe thunderstorm warnings and the one tornado warning, but we are all under the tornado watch until 9 o'clock. So the tornado watch for all of us until 9. We anticipate several rounds of storms through the afternoon, as well as the tornado warning that's in place for the central part of Harrison County. I'm going to zoom back into the radar. You'll notice across the entire region that these thunderstorms will continue to feed off of the instability that we have in the atmosphere. This tornado warning includes the Elizabeth area, This is the real deal, folks. You've got to be in your tornado safe place. You've got to take cover right now if you're in central Harrison County. If you are in the Corydon area, you should also be in your tornado safe place. Webster, Dogwood, places that are in the path of this storm, which is showing great rotation on the radar. You're going to need to make sure you seek shelter. I'm going to check with the Weather Service, see if any reports are coming in as far as we do have. We believe we receive word from Harrison County Dispatch that we do have a tornado on the ground with this storm. So you are going to need, again, we've stressed that you have to be in your tornado safe place. Let me show you why. I mean, we have law enforcement saying the tornado is on the ground. So let me tell you where that likelihood of it going and where it would be take place. There you see it. It's crystal clear on the radar. We have it approaching Webster, just south of Corydon. You're going to have to be in the basement at this point. You should be at the lowest level. If you're in a mobile home and you have time, you should try to seek shelter in a more sturdy or substantial structure. This thunderstorm is showing unbelievable signs of rotation. I can also pick up debris on the radar. Let's see if we're seeing any of that. And what we would be looking for would be some of the darker colors, a little bit on the blue side. It's tough to pick out, but it would be right in that area there, and it's tough to see. So we may not be seeing debris. In fact, it could be over a very rural area and not picking up anything, but the fact is, law enforcement say the tornado's on the ground. The radar shows the unbelievable hook on the reflectivity, and right here on the velocity, that notch, which would indicate the potential for the tornado as well. So we're seeing it on radar. People are seeing it on the ground. You have to do your part now and take cover and make sure you stay as safe as you can. Again, the storm is approaching the Webster, Indiana area. This is just south of Corydon. This moves very close to Dogwood, just to the north, and Laconia to the south. So if you're in this zone, Corydon, Webster, Dogwood, now is the time to pick up the phone and let people, your friends, your family know what's happening. This storm could stay on the ground for a while. People in PRP and Shively should be on guard. You're going to have to pay attention. No warnings for you right now, but if you have family and friends in western Jefferson County, now is a good time to say, hey, turn the TV on, make sure you have the app, pay attention to the storm in Harrison County. It's moving to the east. And as that storm moves eastbound, we're going to be under the threat for the same type of weather. Look at that. You see it both tightening up. This storm is continuing to develop. We have a tornado on the ground, folks. You've got to make sure you're in your tornado safe place. The lowest level, away from windows. This is a place that you need to make sure you can ride this storm out and let it pass. We have a number of crews working with law enforcement to make sure we can pass along the most relevant and accurate information possible. My job is to walk you through what the radar looks like and interpret the data that we're seeing. And indeed, you can see this tornado is on the ground. We've had the reports of it. Can't always tell that by looking at the radar, but that's an unbelievable signature coming in. In fact, one of the strongest I've seen in my career, where we can see the great rotation showing up near Webster, near Dogwood, just south of the Corydon area. Now, I don't want to ignore the other storms that are going on. This is a life-threatening storm. We have to make sure that the folks watching out of central Harrison County understand that you've got to be in your tornado safe place. I understand we have additional thunderstorms across the entire area as we look at the warning that's just being modified. So they're trimming off the backside of that. You can see it flashing. They're just reissuing it for the rest of Harrison County. It is not extended into Jefferson County just yet. The zone where we have the tornado would be approaching Webster as we speak. So we've been talking about that. That is where we have the greatest rotation at this point. I'm going to go back to our camera view. I'm going to take you back to our home view for just a second. We're going to zoom back in. That is the area of concern. I want to put the radar back on. With the radar on, you can see additional severe thunderstorms coming out. Now, it's important to note that with the atmosphere that we have and the instability we're working with, any of these thunderstorms can cause a decent amount of damage. High wind, large hail, primary threats. Isolated tornadoes, we mentioned it throughout the day yesterday. We've mentioned it all day today. All very real possibilities. We've seen it all today in places. The strongest thunderstorm we have is across parts of Harrison County. Let me show you what it's looking like as we look back to the west. We can show you toward Harrison County. You can see we've got the storm tracker deployed. This is the storm tracker making its way toward Harrison County. We'll be able to give you some real close views of what that storm looks like. We also have a series of tower cams that we have out of Corydon, Indiana. We've been watching the thunderstorms from our SkyTrack camera. I can show you what that looks like as well. Heavy rain. Haven't been able to notice the hail as much. It's calmed down there some. As far as the rain is concerned, the wind still whipping. We also note that the hail potential with this storm wasn't as great as some of the others. Back to the radar we go. I want to point out that the severe thunderstorm warnings do have the potential to produce some of that large hail. The thunderstorm of most concern is the one with the tornado on the ground and certainly on the radar. That's one just west of Louisville. Not only is it concerning because it's menacing on the radar, but it's moving into, or at least closer to, a very populated area. You'll see those thunderstorms to our north. I'm going to zoom into each of them briefly because I want to make sure you know that you are also under the gun for some very strong storms. Let's go into it, and we'll go through it quickly. Here's Jennings County. There's Lovett. There's North Vernon. Heavy rain, possible some hail, wind speeds up to 60 miles an hour. To the south, southern parts of Jefferson County, Indiana, and northern parts of Trimble County, north of Bedford. Heavy rain. Possibly 60-mile-per-hour winds. The potential for some quarter to nickel-size hail with that storm. I'm going to grab the radar and move it down just a bit. As we go back to the south, we'll take you across parts of Washington County. There's Scottsburg. That's Scott County. There's Washington County, north of Salem. Same story. Large hail there. Soon to be a new warning, I have a feeling. That may go over into Scott County. The storm that we're really got an eye on is the tornado warning to our south. Keeping an eye on Meade County, too. Could have a warning for you guys for the potential of large hail and wind. The warning that we have, look at this. You can see that hook on the reflectivity. I'm going to zoom in. We go back inside of this. I'm going to put the velocity on first. You'll see it clearly. There it is. You can't miss that. That's the tornado that we have confirmed on the ground by law enforcement. I'm going to zoom into it. We're going to give you a minute-by-minute outlook of where you can expect this storm to go as we track it closer to the east or the western part of Jefferson County and the eastern part of Harrison County. Again, moving into Webster, New Middletown, you are under the gun in your tornado safe place. Wait till this storm passes. Power outage is likely happening with this storm. That's a tornado on the ground pushing right across New Middletown, pushing through Webster just north of Dogwood. It's already past Indiana 337. Seven Springs next in line. Elizabeth, Indiana, you are not out of the woods either. You're under the tornado warning. This would include places not too far from the casino. So we're watching it closely. This thunderstorm is moving to the east and off to the southeast, pushing toward Seven Springs, gradually making its way toward Indiana 11. Again, the main concern right now, passing New Middletown, passing Webster. Hopefully, you're in your tornado safe places. That's what we have. As far as what the radar looks like there, you're going to think, well, that doesn't look all that impressive. There's no rain even on the southern part. That's right. But the rotation is definitely there. Let me show you. Let's see if we're picking up any debris at this point. We keep bouncing back and forth between our tools so we know what's happening. There would be the zone. You can see it's sort of free of anything. So we're getting closer into that zone right there where we would see some of that damage. It very well it's likely on the ground and it's likely hit something by now. I can see that. What the radar is telling me, that would be my best guess at this point. Now, we don't have a ton of debris showing up, but wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing a little bit right there, right where we had that strongest rotation, right where we have the velocity couplet showing that passing by. New Middletown, Webster, there you have it. That's the tornado warning. If you've ever wondered when we've been on for severe weather coverage and you say, I can't really tell, they always say the reds and the greens toward and away from the radar. Here's the deal. This is what a classic tornadic signature looks like on the radar, and we have had law enforcement from Harrison County confirm that a tornado is on the ground. So we have to make sure that the folks ahead of this storm are in their tornado safe places. Pick up the phone, do your part, call the people that may be in the path of this storm and let them know it's headed their way. Again, we're talking not about everywhere, not everybody's going to see this, but this is across parts of central Harrison County. It's past Corydon, so there's no worries there. This is folks in New Middletown, Webster, Seven Springs, Elizabeth, down Indiana 11, pushing not far from the golf course, the casino, pushing over toward western Jefferson County eventually. We will track this storm as it approaches, and you can see additional severe thunderstorm warnings coming out around that. Let's see if we can't go to those, and we'll point out that now Jefferson County is under a severe thunderstorm warning until 3:30. If this storm holds together, so they're holding off a little bit on the tornado warning because the fact is that could weaken. We still have a little bit of time. That tornado warning is still in effect for another, well, almost 30 minutes. So as that gets closer, if the radar signature is still showing up like it is now, you can guarantee that we'll wind up seeing another tornado warning issued. And we have a new tornado warning issued. This one is now coming out for parts of Jefferson and Trimble counties. That's Jefferson, Indiana, near Madison, and northern Trimble County. Tornado warning now for you folks until 2:45. That is also because of rotation being detected by radar. Again, I'll point out that we've had a number of warnings being issued. One coming in for Harrison County because of an actual tornado that's on the ground. We also have another one for Jefferson County, this area right here. You see it trying to tighten up. Notice the difference. It's not as bright, it's not as tight, but there is rotation, and for that reason the tornado warning has been issued for the extreme southern part, which includes Madison, Hanover, you know those areas. Make sure those people know, if you have family or friends there, that we are watching this storm and that they are under a tornado warning. Northern parts of Trimble County, Milton would be in that path. We're going back to our home view. Let's check the storm in Harrison County. That storm, likewise, has been showing a far different radar signature. It's confirmed that we have a tornado on the ground. We pointed out a while ago, we may very well see severe weather across Meade County. Bingo, it just went severe. We now look into the tornado warning that we have just west of Louisville. I'm going to zoom back into this storm as we take a closer view of what's happening just west of the metro. This thunderstorm has had a history of not only producing the tornado, but likely producing damage across the area. On the reflectivity, which is what we're looking at here, the signature isn't as pronounced. Let's see if that's the case on the velocity. It gives us an indication of winds toward and away from the radar. We still have it, and you can still see some of that rotation showing up very near the Webster area. We have had reports of hail coming out of the Corydon area that we mentioned to you earlier. You can see what that looks like. We've had a number of folks sending photos and video imagery in. This hail, tough to see the size there. Looks like it could be upwards of quarter to golf ball size hail. Yeah, it could have been larger in some of the areas to the north of Corydon, across parts of southern Indiana. Hail has been a main threat today, along with the fact that we're watching this rotation and the tornado itself possibly producing some damage across Harrison County. Again, that is moving to the east. The forward speed on that, 35 to 45 miles an hour, would gradually push it into western Jefferson County should it hold together. The storm's going to hold together. We're going to have quite a thunderstorm. We're already under a thunderstorm warning for Jefferson County. Will we be under a tornado warning? And the question is, what will this storm do? Still showing that sign of rotation pushing closer to us. Andy Weingarten is here as well. We're going to check in with him in just a second to get an update on any damage that's coming out of any of these storms, whether that be hail or wind, in just a second. I wanted to point out the number of warnings that we have across the area. Severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings look like this. Know the difference between a watch and a warning. All of us are under the watch until 9 o'clock tonight. It just means conditions are possible. There are many of you under warnings, whether that's severe thunderstorm or tornado warnings. Temperatures are very warm. We've been feeding off of the heating that we picked up after this morning's thunderstorms. Winds have been strong on the order of 25 to 30 miles an hour. And again, now we're seeing the benefits of what has happened as far as the instability is concerned, as far as the thunderstorms developing within that unstable air. New warning coming out for Scott and Washington counties in Indiana. Another one that we called just a few minutes ago. Looking at this, a little bit of a hook. Let's see if the velocity shows any of that. Wouldn't be surprised to see some of these go tornadic in a hurry as well, especially the farther north we go. That will likely become a tornado warning. We're going to have to watch that closely. Let's go over to Andy Weingarten. Andy, jump in here. We've got quite an active day that's just really blossomed across the area within a matter of the last hour.
Yeah, it really has. Take a deep breath, Kevin, and we'll get everybody through all this. Great coverage so far. Let me give you the latest from the National Weather Service on the Harrison County tornado. The last confirmed spotting was near New Middletown, but it does look like that part of the storm may be weakening just a little bit. And according to the National Weather Service, they're expecting that to dissipate soon. But that doesn't mean the threat is over, because anytime you have this kind of a situation, as you work your way downstream, you can spin them up very quickly. So it's not out of the realm of possibility as we go into eastern parts of Harrison County and then cross the border into western Jefferson County. A brief spin-up tornado is still very much on the table. Also on the table is large hail. We've had a couple of reports of hail up to approaching baseball-sized. And it looks like with the warning for Jefferson County, hailstones up to 2.5 inches in diameter are possible. So that would be between golf and baseball-sized hail coming across the border from Harrison County into western parts of Jefferson County. And apparently there was some debris in the air, is the latest thing. Some sheet metal apparently had been in the air in Harrison County from that what was a confirmed tornado. So we very clearly have a very dangerous situation just west of the metro area. This is no more than about 10 to 15 miles west of downtown right now. Tornado warning continues for central and eastern Harrison County, primarily eastern now, Harrison County until 2:45, and severe thunderstorm warnings out ahead of that now into Jefferson County for the possibility of large hail, and I would not rule out a spin-up tornado here as well. Kevin, I know you're keeping up to date. Any new information coming up your way?
Yeah, let's just go through the warnings. We have so many of them. This is our big board. This is how we keep up with what's happening. And you can see Scott and Washington counties still under severe thunderstorm warnings for another 34 minutes. Severe thunderstorm warning, Jefferson County, new tornado warning. Let's go to it. This is a new tornado warning coming out for parts of the viewing area. I have a feeling it's going to take you back to the north where we've been watching that thunderstorm. And again, this is Carroll County, Kentucky. So over into Carroll County, we're seeing some rotation show up out of this storm. Again, folks, this is one of those kind of days where the environment is right. We have enough wind shear. We have mid-level winds that are howling, surface winds. We have enough directional and wind shear that we are going to see these storms spin. And with that, we wind up getting the potential for tornadoes. And the one we know has been on the ground. The others are still possibilities. Now, let me go back to the camera view, and we'll just zoom back out so you can get your bearings of where all these warnings are. We have so many of them around the area. We have a number of severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings that keep coming out. Again, tough to see. I'm going to put the radar on. And notice the severe thunderstorm warnings outlined in yellow, the red, the tornado warnings near Madison. That's northern Trimble, southern parts of Jefferson, Indiana. Carroll County. That's tornado warning. That was tornado warning number 2. Tornado warning number 1 is the one we were watching across parts of Harrison County. We zoom back into that one just to get a recheck of how strong that one is, because throughout the afternoon, that thing tightened up in a second, and it's pushing closer to us here in the metro as well. Notice severe thunderstorm warnings coming out as well. This one has weakened somewhat. We pointed that out when we zoomed in the last time. We mentioned that New Middletown and Webster would have been in a zone to see some of the strongest rotation out of this, where we potentially had the tornado on the ground. Confirmed by law enforcement, by the way, so I guess there's no more potential out of that. We'll say that it was indeed a tornado on the ground. If it did any damage, we're still uncertain about that. that, but we still track this, and notice how it's sort of flattened out. This would be where we had that tight rotation. That sort of fizzled just a bit. But as Andy pointed out, as these storms move forward, they're still running into an atmosphere that is sheared, and they're still pushing forward, which means they have their own momentum. And that can cause spin-ups of their own out ahead of that. So we'll be watching a number of areas across the area. Harrison County Dispatch has told us that New Middletown Road in Harrison County was headed toward the east on the ground. So Harrison County Dispatch has given us that information. That was very much near New Middletown. It was New Middletown Road headed eastbound. That's where we had the tornado on the ground, toward Lanesville, the direction of the movement. Now we have Seven Springs, Loddick Corner, Locust Point, Greenwood. As we cross over into Jefferson County, no tornado warnings at this point, but we do have severe thunderstorm warnings for the metro area. Here's the deal with this. We're giving a lot of attention to the tornado warning that we had in Harrison County because it was a tornado on the ground. We knew that. We could tell by radar. We had law enforcement confirm it. What we want to also point out is that any of these thunderstorms across our viewing area have the potential to do damage today. Damaging winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour and large hail. Upwards of apple size in some cases would not be out of the ordinary. Wouldn't be surprised to see it before the day is done. This is just round one. We're not going to deplete all the energy in the atmosphere this go-round. We're going to have additional thunderstorms that develop even into the evening hours tonight. So this isn't a one-and-done kind of deal. We're going to have to remain vigilant throughout the rest of the afternoon and evening for the severe weather threat. This is one round. This pushes out. Additional storms are going to be possible. Andy?
Okay, yeah, just want to give you a quick update. We've been, of course, dealing with the storm out just to the west of Louisville. That one seems to be weakening a little bit, but now they're issuing information for the storm up in Trimble in Jefferson County, Indiana. There was a confirmed report of baseball-sized hail in Milton and a funnel cloud reported near Hanover. So right in the center of the storm, actually up to the northeast of Louisville, Trimble County, Jefferson County have a report of baseball-sized hail. That's 2 3/4 inches in diameter, folks. That's big hail, and a possible funnel cloud near Hanover up in Jefferson County, Indiana. Kevin?
All right. You have Max 2. You can adjust that to that storm there, and we will jump over here and look back to the view. Andy was talking about this storm up around Madison. We're looking at the one also just west of Louisville. Along that whole line, you may not get a tornado warning, but you could still have that large hail. What I'm going to do now is zoom in to this corridor of storms. We have new warnings coming out constantly here, so it's almost tough to keep up with all the warnings coming out. They all sort of mean the same thing, meaning that if you're under the warning, you need to make sure you're in a safe place, A, and B, wind and hail, the main threats. There will be a few isolated cases where we have that rotation strong enough to trigger a tornado warning. Let's zoom back in to the thunderstorm warning that we have just now coming out, and this one is going to be just north of the tornado warning. So Jefferson, that's Indiana, and Trimble, Kentucky. That storm has also been the one where we've had the largest hail being reported out of. Andy just mentioned the baseball size hail out of this storm. I'm going to move the radar over. Let me grab the pan. Near Kaminsky, large hail possible. Keep an eye on that. Anytime you see these purples showing up on the radar today, you got to think, wow, that could be large hail falling. Indiana, look at that, upwards of golf ball to tennis size hail approaching where would have been near the Milton area, likely moving just past that at this point. So that's another area that we're watching. The tornado warning for those folks in Carroll County, as well as northern Trimble and southern Jefferson in Indiana, in place until 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Let's go back to our home view here. We go back home, and I'm going to put on to this map. I tell you, Andy, will you do me a favor? On Max 2, will you just zoom that out so we can see the hail? And then just walk us through all the places that have the potential to see that large hail.
Okay, actually, I've got it zoomed in on Max 2 right now in the Milton area, and this is where the baseball-sized hail was reported. And what I'm showing, this is not precipitation. This is simply where we think the largest hail is, and the darker the color, the larger the hail. And this was, again, just to the west of Milton and should be moving east at about 30 miles an hour. Other storms, you were talking, Kevin, about the one up
yeah, look at that. I mean,
north.
we're getting those reds. That's indicating a baseball-sized hail.
Exactly, and that would be up, let's see, that would be just to the north and west of Hanover, it looks like. And then we'll move over towards the metro, Scottsburg. There's some hail up there, and then we'll work our way southward. And
see, the fact is, even if it's
there we go.
baseball-sized hail on the radar, even if it's melting some, it's going to fall greater than golf ball-sized hail, which will do damage.
Exactly. And then in the one just to the west of the metro, large hail just about to cross the Ohio River out of
Lift
eastern
that up just a bit.
County.
We have a banner on the screen. There you go.
Okay, there we go.
And now zoom in. There we go.
We'll zoom in on that one. There's another area to watch, Valley Station, PRP, in the next few minutes. I do want to pass along, apparently there has been unconfirmed reports of damage now in Harrison County, Indiana. This is per our newsroom, that there were 4 tornadoes that had been reported on the ground, New Middletown Road near Lanesville, and then the area of Lake Road. Apparently there is damage of some type in that area. No reported injuries, thank goodness, but apparently some damage. So it is apparently very likely that we have had tornado touchdowns now in the eastern part of Harrison County. And the most recent report now out of Madison, 1 mile south of Madison, golf ball sized hail in that storm. So the tornado potential, it's still there. The hail potential, high winds, very much still in the picture. Kevin?
We still have tornado and severe thunderstorm warnings going on across the metro, keeping an eye on it from many angles. From our news department, we are in constant contact with the National Weather Service as well as police and fire in each of these counties being affected. We have crews stationed up around the Salem, Indiana area, and they are also getting reports of what's happening there, which is the potential for some of that large hail to be falling. You'll notice the severe thunderstorm warnings extend from the northernmost part of our viewing area all the way down through the Louisville metro. I'm going to dive into the metro at this point so we can take a closer view of what's headed our way as we track this storm into the city. Severe thunderstorm warning has been in place for just a bit. We've been monitoring the threat of that rotation, or what was the tornado, doing damage across parts of central Harrison County, near New Middletown, near the Webster area. Been there a number of times. I know that zone just south of Corydon. Again, that storm is pushing very close to the Ohio River, but it has lost a lot of its rotation. We continue to see very heavy rainfall across the metro. The greatest potential for hail would be now moving right across the river, and that's going to be right in between Shively and PRP as it moves into western Jefferson County. We have additional thunderstorms down I-65, not too far from the Shepherdsville area, and then more storms over northern Hardin County near West Point. Let me show you what it looked like in Salem, Indiana. Here's some video being sent to us. This is what appears to be a very low-hanging cloud. Always tough to tell if they're actually rotating until we can watch it for a few seconds. And at this point, we've had large hail coming out of that area, and we've also had the potential for some rotation with any of these storms today. So while that one did not trigger a tornado warning itself, it certainly had the potential and was very ominous looking. We always appreciate our viewers sending us the video, sending us the photos. We always say we can put million-dollar radars in a number of places, but there's nothing better than ground truth, and that's from a set of eyes, people like you, that help us better determine what's exactly going on. And what's happening now is the fact that we have heavy rain, a lot of lightning here in the metro area, generally all across Jefferson County, goes from the Ohio River all the way down to the Jefferson Forest. This is heavy rain, but outside of that, let's look inside, see if we have any hail potential now here in the metro. We talked about this storm moving across parts of Harrison County, the one that had the tornado warning with it. That's where we would have the greatest hail potential. Looking at how large that would be, the pinks indicating golf ball size. The reds, tennis balls. We're not quite there, but we're larger than golf ball size hail. That potentially moving close to PRP, very close to Shively. That would be an area of concern with any of these storms today.
Let me just let you know, PRP just half-dollar sized hail so that we can at least confirm that there is some hail in that storm. Appears to be a little smaller than it was in Harrison County, but that's a confirmed report of half-dollar sized hail in PRP.
Half-dollar size hail, that's large enough to do damage.
Yes.
We could definitely see that. If you have your cars parked outside, now may be a good time to find a little shelter, whether that's a parking garage, a canopy, car wash. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, flooding those areas, but not going to get a whole lot of use today outside of the shelter that they can provide. So I would say if you're in far western Jefferson County from PRP to Shively, as we track this storm across central Jefferson County, eventually pushing toward Okolona, keep that in mind. If you still have some time, now's the time to do it. Go ahead and make sure you protect your life and property, especially when it comes to the large hail potential across the entire area. We go back to our home view again. That was Jefferson County, pointing out that the rotation has weakened quite a bit. I'm going to put on the velocity so we can see rotation everywhere. Let me get out of that and then go back to the rotation. The velocity showing where we would have that. Now I'm going to zoom back in because we still have active tornado warnings, but the fact is in many of these instances we are seeing the rotation weaken somewhat. So just allow me to go back in. Not a whole lot of rotation there. Again, this is Madison, Indiana, right along 421. That's Jefferson County, and then northern parts of Trimble, and then over into Carroll County. Barely includes Trimble and Carroll. But again, that rotation is weakening as well. We have powerful winds in this storm. The velocity product of the radar also gives us an indication of how fast the winds are blowing. Near Graham, Republican, Smyrna, we could be seeing upwards of 60, 65 mile per hour winds with that storm in itself. So you don't always have to have a tornado to have damage. You don't always have to have large hail with a thunderstorm. Plenty of lightning with these storms that provide their own hazards. Notice across parts of Clark County, there's Henryville, no stranger to strong storms. Vienna, Gibson, all under severe thunderstorm warnings. No major rotation showing up, but we do have the potential for some large hail in that area. Let me just show you where we would see the greatest threat of hail. We look at our hail scope for that. I'm just going to drag it across these storms, and you'll be able to note where we have it. Not far from Gibson. Again, it's smaller. It's nickel to quarter size hail, but it's on the radar nonetheless. And we've pointed out the last couple of days the main threats would be hail and high wind. I'm going to drag the radar down. We'll do the same thing to the thunderstorms now pushing across Jefferson County. You come right down I-65. You go through Sellersburg, portions of Floyd County. No problems at all in many places there. You'll see to our south that we continue to watch what's going on in Jefferson County with some decent wind pushing out with that hail. We have a live picture here from. Where's our live picture from? This is Dixie Highway, just south of the Watterson. So we're viewing that storm that's moving in. Here's the Dixie right here. So we're just south of the Watterson. That would put it very close to here, not far from the Shively area, of course. We're going to zoom back into that zone there. I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm going to show you the hail potential. As we go back in to this area, there's the Ohio River, PRP, Valley Station, and you can see Greenwood. There's the Dixie. You can see 31W right there. So here's Shively, the Watterson. We're located very close to this area here. And as we look at the hail, we'll go back to the tools, and then we'll go in on our hail, and we'll just zoom in across this whole area here. And as I do that, you're going to notice that the potential for some of that larger hail is near the Greenwood area, near PRP. That takes you up close to the golf ball size hail pushing through that area. So by the time we melt some of that, it may very well be down to nickel to quarter size, half-dollar size hail, as Andy pointed out. But that is the area of concern. That's going to be pushing right up to the Dixie. So we should be seeing, in fact, we can see hail on the video. Notice that. Watch it close. No, zoom back into that. And as we take a look at that hail, we should be seeing it get larger. So we will continue to watch that. And you can even hear it hitting the ground. Right now it's upwards of pea size. We're just north of the heaviest core of that hail. Again, this is along Dixie Highway, just south of the Watterson Expressway. So that's what we're watching now, where they are seeing at least some of that smaller hail fall. But the potential for this over the next 2, 3, 4 minutes will ramp up significantly, especially just south of the location that this camera is in. Look at that. That's a pretty decent hailstone there. That's upwards of quarter to golf ball size hail in between at this point. So that's enough to do a little damage as well. Andy, while we're watching this, what do you have?
Yeah, first of all, I'll let you know as we hit 2:45, the tornado warning for eastern Harrison County will expire, and it does appear the core of the storm is now east of you anyway. The other tornado warning still out up in Jefferson County, Indiana, and parts of northern Trimble County. It looks to me like the core of that storm now crossing the river north of Bedford and north of Milton up into the Madison area, well, Milton, and then from there on north and northeast. That's where the core of that storm is right now. New severe thunderstorm warnings coming out now for, let's see, Bullitt, Hardin, Jefferson and Meade counties in Kentucky, and Harrison County, Indiana. That's to replace the Harrison County tornado warning, so it's more now of a straight line wind and hail event. They have lowered the potential hail size down below 2 inches, so some good news there. It appears that we're beginning to transition into more of a hail and straight line wind event. Hopefully that will be the case, but we still have plenty of it out there, and that new warning is until 3:30. Kevin?
All right, we have a number of areas seeing this hail that's upwards of what we've seen as either golf ball size and in some cases $half to as large as tennis ball size hail in some places across the viewing area. Obviously, what we're witnessing here in the monitor just off to my right-hand side is hail that's falling along Dixie Highway just south of the Watterson Expressway. That hail size is roughly golf ball size hail at its largest at this point, and many areas closer to nickel to quarter size hail. Again, the warning continues. Here's PRP. There's Greenwood. Passing by that, the warning extends over toward Iroquois Park, Auburndale. A sign of things to come. You're seeing that video come from this area here. So if you are viewing us from Iroquois Park, Hazelwood, Auburndale, pushing over toward the Ford Assembly Plant, that storm is moving in your direction. We're likely going to see some hail push through. May not be large, could get larger. I mean, these storms sort of are in a life of their own, a cycle, if you will, that we will continue to watch as it pushes across central parts of Jefferson County. Now's a good time, if you're ahead of the storm, to get that car where you can move it away from the storm. The storm's moving off to the east. Forward speed on those storms running at about 35 miles an hour, I believe. Let me just double check the timing on those. They're pushing east at northeast in Scottsboro, about 25. So anywhere between 30 and 25. Now, we've been watching the radar throughout the day. We have a new tornado warning coming out now. The picture you saw was the storm south of Corydon. That was likely the tornado near New Middletown or the Webster area. Let's go back to the radar with the new tornado warning coming in. Let's take it full, and I can point out where we have the latest tornado warning across parts of our viewing area. We've been, again, keeping a close eye on what's happening. This is Jefferson County, again, Indiana, DuPont. There's Middle Fork, there's Wirt, Smyrna, Wakefield. It's this part of the storm here, passing by Comiskey. That's going to be pushing eastbound. Be over near the China area, north of Ringwald. Republican. Madison is here, right along the river. Just kind of get your bearings together. I'm going to zoom out a bit on the radar. Well, first, let me put on the velocity so we can see where we have the greatest rotation with this storm. Should be in this area here. And as we look at the rotation, you can see the tightly wound radar. Again, that is where we have the tornado showing up on radar. We have had a confirmed tornado. Here's the thing today, folks. The atmosphere, and I don't want to get into all the science behind this, but we have enough humidity and the dew points are high enough that we have enough moisture close to the ground that it doesn't take a whole lot to see these storms fire up and put down a tornado. So it's happening a little faster than we normally would see. Sometimes we sit here and wait all day and we never have a tornado warning. Today, these storms, as they fire up, they have the real potential to put down a tornado warning. Again, we have not only the threat of the tornado warning in Jefferson County, Indiana, and that is the only tornado warning we have at this point in our viewing area, so we can go ahead and adjust accordingly. But we have the tornado warning for Jefferson County, Indiana at this point. You see the rotation showing up on radar. That is the unconfirmed as far as spotters are concerned, but we have that showing up on radar. Everywhere else, all of the warnings, the one for Trimble County, Carroll County, Southern Jefferson, and Harrison have expired. So we're dealing with one tornado warning, still showing the rotation. We also have hail falling in the metro. take a look. You can see this hail stone that is about a golf ball size. That's live, and you're seeing that from western Jefferson County. This is just south of the Watterson Expressway. That hail size is large enough to do damage to vehicles. It's large enough to do damage to roofs. It can cause some problems. Now, the good news is I don't see a whole lot of it on the ground. The bad news is it doesn't take a whole lot of it to cause damage. Again, we can go to Andy Weingarten to give us a more exact location.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, on that hail that you were just seeing there, confirmed report of golf ball-sized hail in the vicinity of Dixie Highway and I think it's Gagel Avenue, which is in the Shively area. That's right about where he is. Not very far. I think it's just south of there. That was golf ball-sized hail. Now, what I'm showing you here is a very close, very tight-knit view of Jefferson County, Indiana. The main cities or towns in that area, there's China and there's Manville, and I've gone ahead and put on some of the streets. This is where you are under the tornado warning right now, so places like Northern Griffith Lane, and if you live in Jefferson County, Indiana, you know these areas better than we do, but Northern Griffith Lane looks like Legion Road and Turkey Branch Road. Now you're getting out way out in the suburbs there, but you've got regions out there in Jefferson County between the cities of China and Manville under the tornado warning. Kevin, back to you.
New tornado warning for Carroll County. This goes until 3 o'clock, so now 2 tornado warnings to talk about. One in Kentucky for the extreme northern part of Carroll County. The other one is just to the north of that in Jefferson County, Indiana. Important to distinguish the difference between Indiana and Kentucky here. Jefferson County, Indiana, Carroll County, Kentucky. The Ohio River, of course, dividing the two. And you can see severe thunderstorm warnings coming out upstream, moving toward the Cincinnati area. As far as we're concerned, we'll be watching both of these tornado warnings. Let's look at the velocity. Let's get folks in their safe place if you're not already there, and you should be. But we want to look at where we have the greatest threat of wind out of these storms. This one would be pushing through the northern parts of Carroll County. I'm going to zoom it in fairly tight here, so bear with us. If you're in Brooksburg, you're still in that zone. That's just across the river. If you're right along 36, if you're anywhere between 36 and then looking down into the extreme northern part of Carroll County, that's the area that you're going to need to be taking cover with. Again, we have just a pretty rural area of Carroll County there. We'll zoom back to our home view, and then we'll go into the Jefferson County storm. This one, likewise, showing that rotation. With the rotation showing up on radar, we await a kind of confirmation from law enforcement with these storms passing by. Now I'm going to go back to Jefferson County, Indiana, where we have the tornado warning, and then we're going to go back to the Jefferson County area and sort of zoom around and show you where we have that large hail moving toward next. In fact, as we go into Jefferson County, Indiana, looking at that rotation, you can see it right there, pushing north of Smyrna. This will be rolling over toward Bellevue, right along 421. The greatest rotation is just south of DuPont at this point. Back to the radar, and let's go to Jefferson County. We take our camera to our home view, and then we'll zoom back in. A lot of folks dealing with anywhere between moderate to large hail. Some of the largest falling right here in Louisville as we speak, where we've seen golf ball to $half size hail. Notice all of the pictures that are coming in. You can see those just off behind me. I'm going to zoom into the radar view. As we go a little closer in, what you will see is that we still have the hail potential in a number of places across Jefferson County. So I'm going to zoom that in, and now let me take the radar and zoom it in so you can get a better idea of where it's moving toward. The greatest potential is going to be across the southern half of Jefferson County. Look at that. We're going to move this and arrange this just a little bit more. And what on top of that,
there's just been a report of golf ball sized hail in Iroquois Park.
Golf ball sized
right hail. In that area that you're zooming into right now, Iroquois Park, golf ball sized hail.
All right, so we have golf ball sized hail coming in across central Jefferson County, pushing down Iroquois Park. This is Iroquois Park right here. Here's Okolona, Ford Truck Plant, Louisville Airport. You're all going to be in the line. Andy, will you adjust to our Kentucky Kingdom Skytrack cam from Kentucky Kingdom? I'd like to see that storm pointed to the south. We can see some of that hail falling. In fact, we could clip it there. The live picture you're seeing is from Dixie Highway, south of the Watterson. You've seen a number of folks sending us golf ball to baseball size hail coming in. Now, the idea is, where is this going? It's passing Iroquois Park now. Let me put the hail tracker back on, and as we look at the hail scope of this storm, I'll track it. Okolona, it's not looking good for you. You're going to need to make sure you take precautions. I mean, You want to stay away from windows in these storms. It's not wind that's the problem, it's the hail. See that dark red? That's up to baseball-size hail. Now, some of this is melting because the radar beam's seeing that just a little bit elevated, and it is warm, so some of that's melting. But even if it melted a decent amount, you're still talking upwards of golf ball larger size hail coming out of the Iroquois
Kevin,
Park area.
let's add
Here's
Churchill
video from Southern Parkway, and you can see that that video is showing hail that's falling there as well. This hail that we're tracking from Iroquois Park to the east will do damage to automobiles. Now, what we're seeing here doesn't look all that large. That won't cause a lot of problems, but some hail pushing through down toward where we see this signature on the radar near Iroquois Park will certainly cause problems. Andy?
Yeah, I was just going to say add Churchill Downs now to the area that just reported golf ball sized hail. So hopefully they're getting the horses, and everybody out there to a safe place. So Churchill Downs right there at Southern Parkway and the Watterson, golf ball sized hail.
Wouldn't be surprised as we continue to see this storm produce larger hail that we might start to see a little rotation out of this storm. So sometimes that happens. They cycle. Remember, this is the same storm that did the damage back across Harrison County. It's where we had that couplet that was so strong that put down the tornado. Oftentimes, as these storms go through their cycle, they will pass down, re-energize, start to crank back up with large hail. We will be watching this closely for any development of rotation as well. That's pushing through the metro now. Let's zoom in a little closer and just give some pinpoint locations of people that we expect to see some of this very large hail as it moves past. You've already seen along the Dixie that we've had golf ball size hail. Churchill Downs reporting golf ball size hail. Here's the airport. Churchill Downs be about right here. You go over to Kentucky Kingdom where we were looking at. I'm going to put the hail tracker on for you, and you can see inside that storm right along the Ford Assembly Plant. I mean, we called this minutes ago. In fact, about 15 to 20 minutes ago, so you could have enough time to plan ahead to move your automobiles into a place of safety. Now, when we look around, there you see it, Iroquois Park, Auburndale. We track that. It's moving at about 30, 35 miles an hour. It's going to cross near the Ford Assembly Plant. Going to go near Heritage Creek, too. So if you're down that way, be prepared. This is rolling into you. We've already had large hail at Churchill Downs. We've seen it at the airport. We're going to push this over toward Okolona as well. So just be on guard for this large hail moving right across the central part of Jefferson County.
Just to let you know, Kevin, you just mentioned Okolona. 3 miles northwest of Okolona, egg-sized hail, which would be 2 inches in diameter.
So let's zoom back in. Let's go back to that radar. You can sort of see that on the radar. I almost pointed it out right here. So here's Okolona. You go up. I mean, that could be it right there showing up, those purple areas that we've been talking about through the day. Let me just zoom in. Sometimes, and we pointed out that hail product, sometimes that lags behind in the data. So we're probably moving forward here. GE would be also in line of seeing some of that large hail pushing right through the area. There it is, Robinwood Road. If you're in this area, that's Thomas Jefferson Middle School. If you're close to that, it's just now passing you. But large hail from Rustic Way. That's going to be pushing over toward Rural Way, Riata Road, or Drive rather, as well as Ridgecrest Road. So this is pushing eastbound. If you're familiar with this area, that's the hail zone you've got to watch out for. Upwards of egg-size hail. I mean, we're talking about some damage coming out of this hail in a very localized area, but even decent-sized hail surrounding it. Now, the last scan of the radar sort of took that away, and that's what we see. Notice to our north, we've got another area. This sort of bounces around, and it's normal, so don't think that it's not. This is just an area where we could be seeing some of that large hail develop, and it will come and go as these storms sort of just go through their cycles. You can see near Kilmer Boulevard, that's East Indian Trail there, near Jennings Lane. So we have potential for large hail pushing through that part of Jefferson County as well. Let's go back to our home view. Andy, what do you got?
Okay, and what I'm showing now is the hail tracker on our other computer, just at a slightly different, not quite as zoomed in, but we're still very much into Jefferson County. I would say you're looking, if you were to go just south of the Watterson, just north of the Snyder, and over towards Newburgh Road, between, say, Poplar Level and Newburgh Road, that's the most likely area now that you're going to see large hail, and it should be translating eastward at about 25 miles an hour. So eventually this is going to be heading towards Newburgh, Fern Creek, areas maybe just to the south of Middletown as it heads over into eastern parts of Jefferson County. So clearly it's the southern half of the county that has the larger hail as compared to the northern areas. And we've already had numerous reports of egg-sized, half-dollar sized, and even a couple of reports of golf ball sized hail in the county. Kevin?
All right, we'll get you back to Jefferson County in just a second. Let me take you north. We certainly have been keeping an eye on Jefferson County, Indiana as well, where we have the tornado warning still in place. You should be in your tornado safe place. There's not been a ton of change on this storm. I'm going to zoom back in just to reassure you on what's happening across parts of Jefferson County. Very narrow tornado warning. Here is the velocity on that. Still seeing some rotation, but no confirmation of any of this touching down. Nonetheless, again, north of Smyrna, just out to the west of Bellevue, right along very close to 421. You see the latest scan's going to push it very much into the Bellevue area. That's where we would see the greatest rotation if you're in Jefferson County. Areas in Madison, heavy wind. That's greatest rotation is just off to your north between you and DuPont. I wanted to check back in with you folks, let you know we were keeping an eye on that. With so many warnings going on, both severe thunderstorm and the few tornado warnings we've had, and large hail here in the city, we're doing our best to sort of keep everybody up to date as necessary. So again, we have the tornado warning, Jefferson County, Indiana. We have severe thunderstorm warnings for Jefferson County, Kentucky, because of the large hail and wind, as well as Bullitt and northern Hardin counties, severe thunderstorm warnings. Large hail from Iroquois Park. Here's what it looked like there as it moved through just minutes ago. You can see the large hail that fell, larger than golf ball size. I mean, when you start getting upwards of baseball size hail, that's some damaging hail that's falling across the immediate metro area. There's no reason to believe that is not still the case in some areas here in town. I'm going to go back to our tools here, and we'll go back into the metro as I zoom in, and then we'll point out where we have the greatest potential for that hail to push through over the next few minutes. Again, right now it's very much near the General Electric plant, and that's going to be pushing over toward past Appliance Park toward the J-Town area. See it right there. We can really zoom into this and point it out. The worst is past Okolona at this point, and you can see right along Newburgh, Buchel, you're seeing some of that large hail. There's Appliance Park. So those are areas of concern when it comes to the large hail threat. I'm going to zoom back in so you can see just how large it is. Our hail scope helps us better tell that. What you're going to notice is the reflectivity is showing where it is now. The hail is going to be displaced back to the west just a bit. Again, lags just behind it. So let me zoom back in, and again you can see that large hail that pushed through, and that's what we're seeing now approach the GE Appliance Park. We have tornado video that's been coming in from Laconia, so let me go back to the home view, and you'll see what appears to be rotation. You can see those clouds swirl around the base. This is a past storm. This was in Laconia. That's over in parts of Harrison County. So we did see from a number of our viewers what appears to be, and it's tough because of the trees, but we certainly see the rotation. We see the wall cloud hanging down. That is what very well may have been the tornado touchdown that did some damage in Harrison County. Back to the radar. Let's get you through what's happening here in Louisville. So many folks curious of what's happening across parts of Jefferson County because of the intense hail that continues to fall. So I'll get to Andy in just a second with an update on what's happening over there, but let's jump back into what is happening here in the city. And the fact is, when you start talking about hail the size of baseballs or eggs, you could be talking about quite a bit of damage, both to property as well as even trees, pets. Think of the things outside. I'm going to zoom back into Jefferson County here. We'll go back into a pretty tight area of Jefferson County, and as we zoom in, you're going to see the strongest part of the storm has passed western Jefferson County. It's past Portland. It's past downtown Louisville. We still have the severe thunderstorm warning coming in. Large hail near Appliance Park, moving very close to Bardstown Road. That's going to approach the Fern Creek and J-Town areas. Again, fine-tuning that area of where we have the large hail pushing through Jefferson County. Andy, what update do you have on damage?
Okay, first of all, we've been able to confirm now, apparently from Harrison County, that there were 4 separate tornado touchdowns in eastern Harrison County. fortunately, so far, no injuries and very little, if any, damage from these. So they must have been in very rural areas. So that's great news there. But spotters doing a great job out there in Harrison County. They've confirmed 4 touchdowns, but so far, no damage or any injuries. As far as the most recent reports, looks like we're getting at the airport, 1¼ inch sized hail, that's via UPS, measuring that, and quarter-sized hail, 4,200 block of Poplar Level Road. So it's been right along that hail core that we have been tracking, basically out of Harrison County through the southwest and now south central parts of Jefferson County. And it appears now that the core of that heaviest or largest hail would be somewhere in the vicinity, if you know where Fern Valley and Old Shepherdsville Road come together, maybe very close to there, heading then towards Newburgh Road, and then, as Kevin mentioned, going to Bardstown Road and eventually Taylorsville Road into the J-Town vicinity. So we still have large hail, but fortunately for the last 10, 15 minutes have not been getting any really strong indications of rotation. So the large hail event is what seems to be unfolding across Jefferson County right now.
We're still to track that, so let's jump back to the radar view. While we're doing that, we'll sort of split the screen and show you some of the pictures coming in from our viewers. We have a number of folks that are reporting this large hail, just to give you an idea of how large it is as it passes by. And I'll just point out that it appears to be weakening just a bit. The purples, the pinks that we were seeing very close to Bardstown Road and GE, that is at least fading out just a bit. You can see larger than quarter-size hail out of PRP, so that is impressive in its own right. That's large enough to do a little bit of damage. You can also see out of Hanover, Indiana, from Katie sending in the photos there. Notice how the different hail pieces have sort of coagulated together. So they coalesce together to form those larger hail stones. That means it spent a lot of time in the atmosphere going up and down. As it came down, it melted, it collided and coalesced with other hailstones, and then that's how you get larger storms. This is out of Jennings County in the northernmost part of our viewing area. Wow. I mean, when you start seeing hail the size of, again, golf ball size to egg size hail, and that's a decent amount of it, you start getting more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hailstones, that's going to do some damage. And I'm sure they have plenty of damage from that hail out of Jennings County. Thank you, Barbara Ann, for sending in that photo. We have hail that's now still falling across parts of Jefferson County, Kentucky. Again, western Jefferson County, all good, in the clear for now. Downtown Louisville, all clear, in the good for now. But I'll call your attention that we're not finished with the storms just yet. Additional storms are still possible. The tornado watch goes until 9 o'clock tonight. These are those thunderstorms that we talked about yesterday, if you were watching, that would pop up in the afternoon, though they were early afternoon as opposed to late afternoon, so the timing may have been off by a couple of hours, but nonetheless fairly precise. What is now going to happen will be additional thunderstorms ahead of the front will push through later on tonight. Some of those could still pack a punch with some very strong winds. Right now it's the hail threat and the potential for some of those stronger storms to rotate and produce what could be a tornado. The severe thunderstorm warning across Jefferson County is because of wind and hail. I'm just going to lift this up to the north. Here's the Louisville Zoo. There's Appliance Park, Oak, Alona, McNeely Lake, down toward Glen Mary and Fern Creek. J-Town, likewise, seeing some pretty good rain and the potential for some hail there. Again, that's pushing through Jefferson County. That's going to approach the Gene Snyder Freeway coming up within the next 5-10 minutes. The heaviest part of that will be in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Fairly slow-moving storm as opposed to sometimes what we see. Flood advisory has been put out for Jefferson County because of the intense rain that's falling across the region, as well as the severe weather that's ongoing because of the hail threat. Again, that's Jefferson County. Let me zoom out back to our home view. We have additional severe thunderstorm warnings to our south, and to our north, the tornado warning continues for another 8 minutes. That's in Jefferson County. We've been keeping an eye on this, just so you know. I know it seems like I've paid a whole lot of attention to Jefferson County, and you're right, but we also are watching that storm in Jefferson County, Indiana, and I can see that on the monitors off to my side here. So I'm watching it. When we need to bounce back and forth, that's the way we do it. So I'm going to zoom back in. Let's go. In fact, I'll just change the whole thing to the velocity. So we're going to go back into the two areas of most concern. The first one is Jefferson County, Kentucky, because of the hail. The second one is weakening rotation pushing across parts of Jefferson County, Indiana. And there you see some of that rotation passed by Bellevue. We'd given the heads up about 5 minutes ago that this would be the case, and there you see it. That's running itself through the tornado warning right along 421 at this point. Still the potential for some damage. Strong winds there. You should be in your tornado safe place, no doubt about it. That's one area of concern. The other one would be off to our south across Jefferson County, Kentucky, where we are not so much focused on the wind threat, but the hail threat that's been going on across the area. Put the radar back on, and you can see heavy rain also falling into parts of Bullitt County, where you could be seeing some very intense wind and rain. I should point out that lightning, and let me just put the lightning on here so you can get an idea. Lightning today is also a major threat. All of these storms have tremendous amounts of cloud to ground lightning. Suspend whatever plans you may have outside. Let these storms fade back, and then you'll have some time through the late afternoon hours to jump back outside and enjoy. But at this point, the lightning is pretty intense across Jefferson County, and you can see that as we zoom in. Number of lightning strikes from Glen Mary, Fern Creek up through J-Town. You start getting into that zone there where we have not only the strongest lightning, but the potential for some large hail, and that's what you're going to note. So that's pushing past GE, Fern Creek over toward the Gene Snyder Freeway. You can see the latest update bringing it now just past I-65. So areas west of I-65 at least doing a little better at this point. Let's go to the latest severe thunderstorm warning we have. This one is a revamp of the one that had been issued. This now is going to take it across our county line, push it into Shelby, Spencer, as well as Bullitt counties. Severe thunderstorm warning until 3:45. Again, main threats, the large hail. The winds, 65 miles an hour. The storm's moving to the east at about 20 to 30 miles an hour. What can you expect in this zone from Bullitt, Jefferson, Shelby, Spencer? Take a look at what's already happened. We've had hail pictures being sent to us by a number of our viewers. Here's one coming in from the Louisville Zoo, and you can see the multiple sizes, the different colors. Some of it's opaque, some of it is transparent or translucent. You can see the different hail sizes, anywhere between quarter to golf ball size. In Milton, Kentucky, working your way into northern Kentucky, up around Trimble County. Notice the hail size there, large, on the order of golf ball size hail, doing damage across northern parts of Trimble County. So that was in Milton. We likewise are still seeing some small hail, but nothing overly impressive at this point on the radar, pushing out of the eastern half of Jefferson County. Nonetheless, hail and high wind, the main threat as we track this storm off to the east, pushing it at about 20 to 25 miles an hour. So sort of a slow-moving storm as it passes by. To the velocity we go, just to see if we can pick up on any strong wind. And yeah, you can see some gusty winds crossing the county line from Middletown over into parts of Shelby County. The outlet shops would be seeing some of that gusty wind. That's very much near I-64, J-Town, some decent wind there, and then down toward Fern Creek, some gusty winds. And when we say that, we're talking maybe gust 45 to 55 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour probably peak in a few isolated places. The main threat, again, is going to be because of that hail we've seen. We've already had very damaging hail push across parts of Jefferson County. You saw those pictures coming in. Let's put out the radar view here. This same storm that we're tracking across Jefferson County moved across Harrison County just about a half hour, 40 minutes ago. You work your way back out there. Let me just zoom it out. I'll point out that Harrison County is where you find Corydon. We have one of our SkyTrack cameras there. We also have a lot of viewers out of Harrison County. New Middletown was a place we were watching close. Here's the video. That certainly looks like a tornado on the ground there. Tough to see. If we could lose the banner, there we go. We can see on the bottom part of that screen what appears to be a tornado touchdown. Law enforcement had confirmed to us that they indeed had spotted a tornado on the ground. Certainly looks like it from that video, but can hardly tell behind that tree level, but nonetheless, we can see that we have had some wild weather across parts of Harrison County today. We had that couplet on the radar. Ryan Hoke is in the WAVE 3 News Storm Tracker. He's on his way to survey any kind of damage that may have taken place there. We're also been keeping an eye on all of these storms that are pushing across parts of Kentucky and southern Indiana. Another 2 minutes on the tornado warning up across Madison, the Madison area. It's just north of folks in Madison, but up around Jefferson County, Indiana. I'm going to zoom back into that. Eventually, these warnings will fade, and we'll wind up seeing a lull in the action. And Andy, if you would, we'll jump over to you in just a second to get an idea of what to expect through the rest of the evening hours. So a future cast on what we can anticipate, because we're not finished with the storms once this round passes by. So we'll jump back to that in a second. Let me go back into the warning that we have to our north, approaching China. It's moving right across 421. That's in Jefferson County. Bellevue, you see it. I'm going to go back to our tools here. With that, we put the velocity on. Big fan of being able to see that rotation. Winds toward and away from the radar. Really pinpointed that storm that we saw coming out of Harrison County in New Middletown. You can see this one has become far less. This is where it would have been, so it's past China. It's just about to move out of the tornado warning, which is this box here. So another minute left on that. That will be allowed to expire. So some good news there. We go back to our home view. And if you've been watching us through the afternoon, you've seen kind of the pattern that we go through when we examine these storms, both on the radar and even behind the scenes. So you get a real clear idea of how severe weather works and who's most at risk on days like today. When these thunderstorms pop up, hail has been a major concern. This is velocity that we're looking at. The green, there's the radar. Green, winds blowing toward. Red, winds blowing away from the radar. So that's one thing that we look at, the wind speed and direction, hence the word velocity. That's what it means. And then we also look at the reflectivity. New severe thunderstorm warning coming out. That replaces the tornado warning. So the tornado warning expires for Jefferson County. And you'll note that we now have a severe thunderstorm warning coming out for that same zone as it moves forward. So remember, we were looking at China and Bellevue. There's the new severe thunderstorm warning, taking it to the east, and that's in effect until 3:30. So for another 15 minutes. Now, we have a number of areas that have been under the gun. You can see all kinds of folks sending us those ominous cloud pictures and videos. Some of those, in fact, look very real, like the tornado. The top one coming in from New Middletown was likely the tornado that touched down. That one did do what we know as at least a touchdown. The middle one here is Salem, Indiana. So and the bottom one is coming out of Laconia. So parts of southern Indiana all seeing these ominous clouds taken from different directions, of course, but nonetheless, what very well would have been likely the tornado touchdown near Webster and New Middletown. Now, the radar view we have here is Jefferson County, Indiana. There's Indiana 250, there's 62. Strong thunderstorm, the potential for hail there, but the rotation has weakened greatly over the course of the last hour. Never was as tight as what we saw around Harrison County. Here to our south, so that's that cluster of storms to the north. Here to our south, Jefferson County remains also under a severe thunderstorm warning until 3:30. Main threats, the large hail. Let's dive back in. I'm just going to zoom back into our metro view here. We have a number of severe thunderstorm warnings from Louisville on to the south, includes parts of Bullitt County, Spencer, Shelby counties. And there you see the latest warning. The worst of this is passing through the J-Town area, Fern Creek. I'm going to zoom back in. That looks like we could see a little bit of large hail showing up not far from the Fern Creek area. Just disappeared on the latest scan. Again, this isn't one of those things. It sort of comes and goes as we push forward because these storms cycle around. There's Seatonville. If you're familiar with Glen Mary, you know where that is, Beulah Church Road. There's the Interstate 265, so the Gene Snyder Freeway, right just off to the east of Bardstown Road. And as that goes north, this is where we have the strongest. That would be the biggest hail core out of this would be not too far from Seatonville. Let me move that so you can see it just a little better. And very small area, but nonetheless, if you live there, you're getting pinged with some decent hail. Let me just zoom back in. Hopewell's here. I can take you right into that storm and show you exactly what street that's on, in fact. So bear with me. We start to get into the darker reds here. Certainly those purples, we're going to just go really tight, so it's going to lose some bearings here. But there you see it, Echo Trail. That's where we would have the potential for some large hail, not far from Hickory Trails, pushing on off to the east. So this is going to be moving eastbound. That's one zone. Andy, what do you have?
Yeah, a couple of things here. First of all, in terms of the storms in the metro, continuing to get reports of hail, but not as large as what we had been seeing earlier in the hour. So there's some good news there. And it looks like the core of this now is east of I-65 and to the south or along south of the Waterston and along the Gene Snyder. So it has been moving east at a fairly quick pace. As far as the warnings, most of these are going to expire in the next, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes. minutes. All the tornado warnings have expired, but the severe thunderstorm warnings will continue, it looks like, till 3:45 for these for Louisville on down to the south. Okay, what about later on this evening? Couple of things. First of all, these storms should have worked the air mass over pretty well here in the metro area. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods completely. It likely means that development nearby is not going to occur once these move out. We'll get a little bit of a lull. However, out to the west, where we haven't seen much yet, we're starting to get some thunderstorms developing out in western Kentucky. They're not severe right now, but this is the western edge of all this upper-level wind energy that we've been talking about. So this is the area that we'll have to watch for development over the evening and then move to the northeast towards us. That would likely be, we're probably looking after sunset for that. If they will hold together. And right now the indications are that they at least will try to as they move to the west, because so far that area out to the west has not seen much activity yet. So they're very hot, they're very humid, and they have the wind energy. So I would say these storms in the metro now, over the next half hour, 45 minutes, they exit. We watch these storms out to the west. We'll get a bit of a break, but by mid-evening, we could be dealing with round 2 of these thunderstorms. Kevin?
And I think round 2 comes, very much on track with what we were talking about yesterday. We said early on in the afternoon, we'd be dealing with thunderstorms that would be more isolated, where we have thunderstorms that produce wind and the potential for tornado, or hail and the potential for tornadoes. And then later in the evening hours, along that cold front, we would see a more linear fashion, bowing segments, if you will, where we would have to worry about wind. And I think that's still going to play out through the evening hours. Let's take a look at some of the damage that's been done, not just by hail, but by wind. We have this tree that has been down right on Bishop Lane. So you can see that. Ashley, thanks for sending in that. Looking down on it, you can see that tree just sort of split out in all directions there. With that, we have at least a tree down. I think we'll see more wind damage potential through the evening hours. Again, the radar is still showing severe thunderstorm warnings across eastern Jefferson County, pushing into Spencer and Shelby counties, down into Nelson County. Some development just south of Bardstown, near Culvertown. That's going to be pushing to the east as well. These storms are moving somewhat slow compared to what we note with a line of storms that moves through. Like a squall line would move 40, 50, as high as 60 miles an hour in a forward direction. These are moving at about 20, 30 miles an hour. So they're putting down a tremendous amount of rain as well. A flood advisory has been issued for Jefferson County, but the good news is most of the rain is moving out. I'm going to zoom back in. Again, we just go through the same routine here to make sure we can keep an eye on where we have the strongest hail cores across the region. And the good news is over the last half hour, those have really come down. We went from seeing a number of areas picking up larger than golf ball, as high as baseball size hail, to what is now one pocket, and we still see it. That's concerning. Let's zoom back in. We go back into this storm a little tighter down toward the Fern Creek area. I have a feeling we're still seeing upwards of quarter, $half size hail. That's going to be pushing just northeast of Fern Creek, that area right there. You see it. And you'll note that Seatonville, we were tracking that just south of the Gene Snyder a moment ago. Let me just go in just even a little tighter. The latest scan on the radar zipped it away. It would be right around in here. So if it develops again, right near Route Road, pushing over toward Leland Farm Lane, Bradby Road. If you're familiar with that area, it's going to be right in that connector there. So that's where we would have the potential for some decent hail. Again, it's weakening just a bit, so some good news. Heavy rain continues all across the county. The threat of wind has been there, but minimal. So we haven't had a whole lot of high wind reports. It's been large hail and then the tornado reports, which is sort of what we thought the day would unfold like. Now, later on tonight, as we see storms develop back out to our west and through the evening hours, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, we should see the cold front get closer through the overnight hours, and out ahead of that front, I suspect we'll see additional thunderstorms. This watch that we have across the area simply means that the tornado watch is in place until 9 o'clock tonight. So we're not finished. This is the first round. It's not like they're going to be like, oh, it's 3:30, we'll let that go, and we don't have to worry about it. We were watching that storm down in Bullitt County, see the latest warning coming out. That's going to go over into parts of Nelson County. Let's take you to it. This is a severe thunderstorm warning moving through Shepherdsville. Large hail there. Note the purples. We've been talking about that. That's sort of been the thing to keep an eye on for you folks at home. When we zoom into that radar and you see those purples, that's just pinks. That's just an indication that we have hail that could exceed golf ball size. Now, this is a pretty small area, but nonetheless, it's there. It's approaching Shepherdsville. I'm going to go into that storm just a little bit tighter as well. Keep you up to date on where that's going. The storm is moving east at about 25 miles an hour. It's going to take it north of Bardstown. So if you're in Bardstown, no big problems out of this one. So good news for you folks. As we zoom in, people that need to be paying attention would be the folks in Shepherdsville, central parts of Bullitt County. Take you into that a little tighter here, and you can see that's going to be rolling right across near the Salt River. And then the greatest hail now, with the latest scan, takes it very much near, not too far from Zappos, if you know where all of the factories are down in Bullitt County. There's the Salt River. Let me go back. There's I-65. I'm just going to push the radar back right along 480. There you see it. One neighborhood not far from Heritage Hill Parkway. Severe thunderstorm warning for you folks until 4:15. That's Bullitt, Nelson, and Spencer. But the greatest hail threat would be in this zone here, in that neighborhood. So if we go in, let's see if we can't just take a closer view. And I'll zoom back in. And as we go in real tight, you can see that that's, in fact, let me just broaden that out because it's moving somewhat faster than it's showing up. So it did pass across the Cedar Place Drive. It's going to go over toward High Pine. This is going to be near 480. Should go right along 480 near Lick Skillet Drive. If you've been there, you know where I'm talking about. So Cedar Place Drive seeing it most at this point. So let's go back to our home view. That's one tiny area, but the most impactful weather that's going on because of that potential for large hail. So when we zoom in and out like that, I know we get in so tight, it's like, well, I don't live there and that doesn't affect me, but some folks do, and those are the ones getting the largest hail out of the entire area here. Once this cluster passes by and pushes through the area, then we will wind up seeing the atmosphere recharge a little bit. It's not going to have as much time as it would have had we not had these storms push through this early in the day, but nonetheless, we will see additional thunderstorms later this evening. Andy?
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Again, we continue to monitor the situation down there now, more over Bullitt County, as well as parts of northwestern Spencer and also down towards Nelson County. And it's large hail seems to be what we're looking at now. And I'm going to bring this out just a little bit, give you a bigger view. South of Shepherdsville, north of Bardstown Junction, and a little bit west of I-65 seems to be the area of greatest concern. These are moving just about straight east at about 30 miles per hour. So we'll keep that in mind. I've had further reports, let's see, ping pong ball sized hail, but that was out of the storm out of Madison and Jefferson County. Also want to let you know, we don't have the exact number, but I can tell you there are numerous outages, power outages here in the Louisville area. I would say it probably numbers in the thousands over the southern half of the county. Kevin?
All right, back with our nonstop weather coverage here. What an afternoon it's been, as promised, with thunderstorms developing in the afternoon. Main threat early on, hail, as well as the isolated tornado threat. We have seen both. The later threat in the day, still yet to come, would be the threat for some strong winds with storms developing ahead of the cold front. Those are not yet on the radar. We see some development across West Kentucky. I suspect we will continue to see more development back across Illinois, and some of those storms will push into our direction through the evening hours. Will they be severe? Still something to be determined. We have to determine how much the atmosphere has been worked over by the storms that are passing through now. So we really need to get these storms out of here, sort of reset, and see what will develop just out to our west. But the chance is still there. Let me show you what it looked like earlier in Harrison County. That's just out to the west of Louisville. Trees are down. In fact, that tree completely toppled over. You see the root ball up in the air. We had not only powerful winds, but a tornado that touched down in Harrison County. The greatest concentration of rotation was just south of the Corridon area. A number of you saw it as well, and you sent us video. You can see what this storm looks like, and you can see what appears to very much be a tornado that's touching down. Tough to see because it's behind that building and the horizon, but nonetheless, we know there's some damage. We've seen the trees down. There's no reason to believe that this is not a tornado that was on the ground, and law enforcement confirmed it as well. So we've been watching throughout the afternoon. Again, that takes us back to just after 2 o'clock this afternoon when that first tornado warning was issued, and then we really started seeing that wrap up tight. That was close to New Middletown and close to Webster on the radar. That was west of Louisville. That storm moved through Jefferson County with upwards of egg size to baseball size hail in some areas. So we know we have hail damage here in Louisville. That has since pushed across eastern Jefferson County, and now the latest warnings coming out with that same storm for Shelby, Spencer counties, and then another warning out of Bullitt County going into northwest Nelson County. Those are the warnings that we have, mainly because of large hail. Now, could there be some gusty winds in there where you see 50, 60, 65 mile per hour winds? Yes, that's still possible. But the main reason for the warnings this afternoon have been because of the hail threat. And we have seen some large hail today. That does a tremendous amount of damage, by the way. You'll also note flash flood warnings going on just outside of our viewing area to the north. Severe thunderstorm warnings, northern Jefferson County, Indiana. These thunderstorms back across Jennings and northern Scott County are not severe. Just about everybody west of 65 in the clear at this point, so some good news. But that's temporary. If you're looking to do run some errands or get out of the house, good time to do that now. Additional thunderstorms fire up this evening and should be moving through. We're going to have sort of a wet weekend too. Believe it or not, all of this, we'll be working on the weekend forecast for you. We'll have all of that at 5 o'clock today. Meanwhile, severe weather is our primary concern, and I'm going to just go back into these storms and point out any large hail that may be falling through this zone to our south and to our east. We also have a number of areas that have experienced the large hail across Indiana. So I know parts of Washington County near Salem have had large hail. Jennings County, large hail. Parts of Orange County saw some hail coming in. Right now, the greatest threat with Jefferson County out of the warning, so all clear for Jefferson County. However, to our south, not too far from Shepherdsville, Lebanon, or Bardstown Junction, pushing close to Lebanon Junction, Cox's Creek, that's going to be moving east. That storm could produce quarter-size hail. Right now, the hail size has diminished just a bit. Same story over across parts of Bullitt, Shelby, and Spencer counties. You're under that warning for another 15 minutes until 3:45. Let me roll through what we have on the big board. These are the current warnings that we have. Notice the tornado warning has expired, so no worries there. We do have Bullitt, Nelson, and Spencer for another 46 minutes. That goes until 4:15. That was the first storm I showed you down across central parts of Bullitt County. It's moving into northwest Nelson County. Also, another minute for Jefferson County, Indiana, and then we'll just be left with the thunderstorm warning for Bullitt, Jefferson, which Jefferson's been allowed to expire, Shelby and Spencer counties in Kentucky. So that's the area that we've been watching for the additional hail. Wind speeds have come down as well. We have wind gust at Paoli at 22, Jasper at 24. And on the radar, when we look at what's happened, you can see those thunderstorms are pushing to the east. Ryan Hoke is out and about in the Wave 3 News Storm Tracker. He's making his way to New Middletown. Evidently, we have had a tornado touchdown that produced some damage there. Let's visit with Ryan just a minute and see. Ryan, I know you're on your way and you're not there quite yet, but tell us what you know as to where you're going, or you may be there.
Indeed, I am. Hey, Kevin, we are just south of New Middletown, Indiana, in Harrison County. Look behind me. This is a telltale sign of tornado damage. This cornfield has been leveled in quite a few spots. Follow my hand here. We're going to take you all the way down to where the storm tracker is, and we have tree damage also right on this property here. You'll notice multiple limbs down. Some of these are quite large. You look even back toward this driveway here, and multiple limbs are down over this way too. There's a house back there that appears to have sustained some damage. Again, we are just south of New Middletown, Indiana, and we've actually got a person who lives here. This is going to be Leslie, and Leslie, you live down the road here. Can you tell us exactly what you saw here just about an hour or so ago?
I wasn't home at the time. I was getting a phone call, and they were telling me that there was a tornado in New Middletown, and all I could do was just hope and pray and get home as fast as I could. We have quite a bit of damage at our home, which we're just right here on the corner. thank God no one was injured. Everything can be replaced. We have, like I said, a lot of damage at our house. We have a totaled vehicle.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Is,
Jeez.
it's okay. All that can be replaced, and we have a wonderful community here, and everybody will jump in. And I'm just thankful that Bill and Diana are all okay. They were the ones I was really worried about with looking at how it went down their driveway, but we're all going to be good.
Do you have any description of what the tornado looked like from the folks you talked to?
My sister actually has a picture of it. It was rather large, and she sent it to me as I was on my way home. My father-in-law, or I'm sorry, my stepdad, Bruce Wendell, who just lives right on the other side of town right here, he actually has it videoed as he was going down into the cellar and seen it coming. So he has a video of it. So
Okay.
I haven't got to see any of that yet. I see enough of the damage, so I'll look at all that later.
I can imagine this is tough for you going through the shock right now. And of course, we're here on the scene with all of this damage around you. So your family was in the cellar, the basement. So
Yes,
that was where they were at the entire
yes.
time?
My stepdad and my nephew, they managed to get to the cellar in time. And I was actually in New Albany with my mom, and we were getting word of this. And as I was listening to Kevin come on and tell us that it was getting bad around here, and so here we are with a big mess.
Leslie, thank you so much. Obviously, we want to make sure that folks are safe day in and day out here. The sun is out rebuilding, and damage repair can take place, and
Well,
we
thanks
wish you
to
the best.
all and Storm Tracker, everybody was safe, and everybody knew to take cover.
All right, we are just south of New Middletown, Indiana, Kevin, here in Harrison County. The damage is significant, and obviously no injuries that we've heard of so far. So good story on that end, but things are going to have to be rebuilt and repaired here over the next several weeks, Kev.
Yeah, you know, when we were tracking that storm, I was thinking of Leslie and her family. I know Leslie, and I know her sister Paula and Misty and her brother Paul and her mom and Bruce. So that is a family I know very well. I've been to their house in New Middletown. So, wow, it brings it to life when you can see, and I was hoping she wouldn't walk away so fast. I wanted you to give her a hug for me. But when you see things like that and you see the damage and the pain that they're going through, they are very lucky in many ways, because this storm passed through. It did do some damage, but it could have been far worse. It certainly was tight on the radar. We had the reports coming in from law enforcement. You saw the Indiana State Police already on the scene. A lot of folks working to keep people safe, and having a plan and making sure you're paying attention to the weather is key in situations like what's unfolded in New Middletown today. When you look at the radar now, we want you to have a plan out ahead of that storm, where you see these thunderstorm warnings that are pushing across parts of Shelby and Spencer counties, down into Nelson and Bullitt counties. Are there tornado warnings with those? No. Is there damage occurring? Most likely not, but we do have the potential for the strong wind and the hail. But the hail size has come down many sizes, or in a big way, over the last hour, really, hour and a half. You look at new warnings coming out just off to the east of Carrollton. That's pushing out to the east. You'll notice pushing to our south, we still have warnings. I'm going to zoom into those real fast, and then we're going to go back and revisit with some of the folks impacted by the storms across Harrison County. As we zoom in, you're going to note the strongest part of these storms moving past Shepherdsville, pushing through Claremont, about to cross the county line into Nelson County. That's going to be just north of Cox's Creek as you work your way up to Highview, pushing toward Mount Washington. That pushes you into parts of Spencer County. And then you can see additional thunderstorms moving southern half of Shelby County, from Shelbyville down along I-64, moving off to the east toward Little Mount as well. Those are areas under the gun now. Those are areas that are seeing severe weather now. The potential for wind and hail, the main threats. Back to our home view we go, and as we take a wider view and we put this into motion over the last little bit as we play this, I'll point out where these storms have gone. And you can see, watch this area here, right along 64, thunderstorms popped up, raced across Harrison County, pushed through Jefferson County, and now they are in Spencer and Shelby counties. It's when that storm moved across Harrison County that it was at its peak. It really was a mean-looking storm on radar, and obviously you've seen the damage from Ryan Hoke, who is surveying that and has showed us the cornfield that's leveled in places, the trees that have been torn apart, and we've had a chance to talk to some of those people to say, hey, what was it like as it moved through?
Well, I got off work and it was kind of hot, and then it started hailing up here. And then we came back outside and it was cold, and we turned around and looked in our backyard right there, and that's whenever we seen the picture that I sent you. It started swirling a little bit, and then it just disappeared.
Didn't last long, doesn't take long. Situations like this, they pop up, they can touch down. Sometimes they can touch down multiple times. So tornadoes take on a life of their own. They take on different shapes and sizes, different wind speeds. You never know how strong one is until you survey the damage. It doesn't matter. It could be a very wide tornado, but not all that strong. It could be a very narrow tornado and very strong. So it really just depends on the strength of the wind speed, and that's yet to be determined. The National Weather Service will make the trip to New Middletown as well to help determine just how fast those winds were. Ryan Hoke, is he standing by? I'd like to get his professional opinion. He's seen a number of tornadoes over the course of chasing storms. We'll check in with him in a second, but I'm going to ask him when we get him back on what his thought is on the wind speed that's occurred based on the damage that he's seeing. So we'll check in with him in just a second. Meanwhile, across the area, we still have heavy rain pushing out closer to the Cincinnati area and just south of there. Number of severe thunderstorm warnings. In our viewing area, the storms we've been watching. Andy Weingarten standing by as well. You can see the storm tracker showing some of that damage coming in. Andy, as far as any other damage reports, hail reports coming in, are you seeing anything at this point for Shelby?
Actually, at this point, nothing coming in over the last 15 to 20 minutes, so that's great news. I think that's further confirmation that the tops of these storms are beginning to come down and the intensities are lessening. There's still some wind energy to feed off of them, but it also seems like they're not moving quite as fast as they were earlier. They have slowed down a bit, maybe moving at about 20 miles an hour. That may be helping things as well. But there's the radar view. We still have the warnings out. Portions of Shelby County, Spencer County, eastern Bullitt County, northern parts of Nelson County, all under severe thunderstorm warnings right now. Jefferson County in the clear. Looks like a little shower trying to pop up near the airport. I want to take this out to the west because we're trying to see what may occur later in the day. And so far, we're not seeing much development out across western Kentucky, western Illinois, into Missouri. Now, there could be a couple of reasons for that. One reason could be that the atmosphere may be becoming what we call capped out there, which simply means where overhead we have all the cold air.
Andy, we have a new tornado warning we need to get to.
All right, let's go ahead and do it.
Popped up on the screen there, but let's just jump back into that.
Okay.
So we'll get back into the forecast of what's to come this evening in just a bit, but let's jump back in. This is going to be across Nelson County. We'll go right into it. You can see Bullitt, Nelson counties until 4:30. This includes the Bardstown area. Going to go just to your north. You can see the hook showing up on that storm near Scuffletown, south of Claremont. Hail falling. Telltale sign on the reflectivity of what this looks like. That's certainly a ominous signature for the reflectivity. I'm going to pan the camera down just a bit, and then we will get into the velocity of this storm. Again, this tornado warning until 4:30 this afternoon. Pushing through Browning, Lenore. That's where we'd have the heavy rain and the hail. On the backside of this, you can see where we will note the greatest rotation. That will push it very close north of Boston, not too far from the Cox's Creek areas it moves through. Need to be in your tornado safe place. Going to go into the velocity here so we can see that rotation showing up on the radar, and you will see it. There it is. Strong rotation showing up. You got to be in your tornado safe place right now. Folks in Nelson County, northern Nelson County, have to be in the tornado safe place. Where is that? Bear with me as I get to it, and you can see it here. Tornado safety rules, you've got to get to the basement or the storm shelter. Where is that? It's always in the center, never in a corner, in the center. Oftentimes it's a bathroom, sometimes it's a closet, can be under the stairs. It's in the center. It's the lowest level. If you have a basement, that's the place, away from windows. This is a warning, not a watch. We're under a watch, but this is a warning. It means it's happening now. Temperatures are cooling down because of the rain, warming back up. More fuel for the storms later today out west. Wind speeds 20 to 30 miles an hour in some places. Current activity on the radar, the tornado warning moving across eastern Bullitt County, northern half of Nelson County. Now is the time to take cover. If you are in eastern Bullitt or northern parts of Nelson County, good time to call family and friends in that zone. Cox's Creek would be one area that certainly should be warned with this storm approaching. You can see we have that hook on the storm. That's where we have the rotation, very much near Ridgetop, Scuffletown, about to cross over the county line. That's going to take it close to Cox's Creek, Bourbon Springs, not too far from Bardstown. If you have family, friends north of Bardstown toward Cox's Creek, let them know. Good time, because we still have time. It's going to move at about 20 30 miles an hour as this pushes closer in the next 15 minutes. Should be approaching, well, Cox's Creek for sure by then, and likely even close to Bardstown within the next 20 to 30 minutes. So we've got some time, but not a lot. Good time to make sure you have a plan and put it into action. We don't want to discount the severe part of this storm either. While the tornado warning is across parts of Nelson County, notice the hail. These purples showing up to the north. That's where we would have the greatest hail threat. Let me zoom back into that because we could be seeing some very large hail falling on the north side of this storm, which would be normal and would be very damaging. So that's going to be pushing out of Bullitt County over into Nelson County as well. Notice this large hail. That's going to push over toward Lenore, right along 523. Here's 245. This is where we have the rotation. I'm going to put the velocity on so you can see it. It's going to take it right towards Samuels. If you're familiar with that area, 245, you take I-65, you can bail off Lebanon Junction. You can get off at the Claremont exit, drive over towards Samuels. That's where we have the rotation. That's it. So it's very close to Samuels, not too far from Deatsville. If you know that area along 245, there's Hunters, there's Cox's Creek. You'll be pushing this off to the east at about 25 miles an hour. Tight signs of rotation. That's impressive. You've got to be at the lowest level in the basement. This is where we have the potential for a tornado. Radar indicated, but I have a feeling, and Andy, you can jump in as well and talk through this storm with me, but wow, this is pretty impressive to see it on the radar again, tighten up, where we have both winds toward and away from the radar, now moving into Nelson County.
Yeah, what apparently has happened with this storm just within the last few minutes is the inflow into it from the south and southeast has really picked up. And you've got all that heat from areas that have not seen storms yet feeding into it. And you develop almost like what we call a little quasi-warm front right over top of that, where you've got the rain-cooled air to the north, this heat and humidity feeding into the south, and that allows the winds to start to turn. So what they're seeing on the radar right now is more upper level rotation. It's not down to the surface just yet, but it's a very clear signature in the upper levels. But if this continues for a few more minutes, you can pull that rotation down. And it looks kind of like the situation we saw where right before the storms developed that produced the tornadoes in Harrison County. You had everything warm and clear down to the south feeding into it very rapidly. This could be what's happening with this storm now in northern Nelson County.
Very similar. The thing we'll watch on that radar, especially on the velocity that you're going to see behind me, is the colors brighten up. As those colors brighten up, an indication that it's getting closer to the surface. So what happens with the radar beam? The radar sits at Fort Knox. It goes out and it goes higher with distance because of the beam and the curvature of the earth. Not to get into a science lesson here, but the fact is, regardless, we can see the rotation, winds coming toward the radar, winds going away from the radar. And when you have those side by side, that's an indication of that rotation, or the couplet that we call it, where we see the strongest rotation now is very much near Samuels, not going to be too far from Bourbon Springs. Going to take you over to Cox's Creek. All of that area is under the tornado warning. You can see the velocity. Let me show you what the radar actually looks like. Heavy rain falling just to the north, and the hail potential to the north as well. The tornado warning's been issued for that zone of rotation. North of the tornado warning, large hail, and you're under a severe thunderstorm warning for that part of the storm. So this is again northern Nelson County. It's crossing out of Bullitt County. So while the warning was initially issued for Bullitt and Nelson, the Bullitt County part of the storm will fade as it moves into Nelson County, and it's across northern Nelson County, Bardstown as well to the south. We'll watch that as it slowly drifts at about 20 to 30 miles an hour off to the east-southeast. But again, that is the area of most concern, not only for the threat of the rotation that we're seeing, but also because of the large hail threat that we have on the northern side of that, a sign that the storm was ticking up in intensity. And we noted that first. We said, wow, we're watching this hail develop, and then the hook sort of started to develop, similar to what Andy was pointing out by a little mesoscale activity going on down across parts of Nelson County. So I want to keep it on Nelson County as we continue with the tornado warning. While we're doing that, we'll split the screen just a bit while we analyze what's going on. I'm going to zoom in, and then we'll point out where we have the hail threat crossing over the county line. That's going to move just north of Cox's Creek. So again, Highview, if you work your way to the north, that area there is in the prime zone for large hail, while the tornado threat would be near Cox's Creek down to Bardstown. So between those two cities or towns would be where we'd have the greatest threat of rotation. While this thunderstorm is likely producing the hail and the potential for a tornado, we know we had a tornado earlier today in Harrison County, Indiana. The WAVE 3 News Storm Tracker, along with meteorologist Ryan Hoke, is out there surveying that damage, talking to people, and really getting a lot more information. We had some viewer video of tornadoes forming in that same area. Show you what that looked like, give you an idea of what the sky looks like with these thunderstorms developing. Plenty of moisture in the atmosphere. You can see the clouds, low clouds, because of the really low bases of those clouds. We can get that tornado to spin up fairly fast and then touch down. That's what we noted out of New Middletown earlier today, and indeed a tornado did touch down. Kristen sending in this video. We appreciate that. Those storms at that point were forming, and now that same system is pushing off across parts of Shelby County. Flipped over this mobile home in Mockport, Indiana. We've got some tree damage there as well. That's why we always say mobile homes, not safe places. Camping, tough to do in weather like this. Back to the radar. If you are in Nelson County and you have family or friends that may be in this zone from Cox's Creek to Bardstown, and that's home for me, so I know it very well. If you're in that area and you know people that live in a mobile home in that zone, give them a call. They've got time to go ahead and seek shelter in a more sturdy structure. You see from those pictures and video why. They're just not safe. They're not attached to the ground. You get wind speeds like this, and it can really do a number. So this is what we're looking at on the radar. I'm going to go back to our velocity here. Again, the main hail threat's going to be here, the northern part of Nelson County, north of Cox's Creek, pushing up into Spencer County, right along 31E. If you've been up the road, Bardstown Road, take you right into Fern Creek. But the greatest rotation is now going to be between Cox's Creek and Bardstown, just off to the west. Let me zoom back into that same area. And as we go in, we'll point out some of these communities that would be most at risk of seeing some of this damaging wind or the rotation that we talk about. It would be right in this zone here. It's getting ready to approach 245. So a lot of lines. This is the severe thunderstorm warning. This is 245. This is the tornado warning, okay? Just to kind of get your bearings together on what you're looking at here, because we've zoomed in so close. Cox's Creek. This storm is right over Samuels and just to the south. Be pushing through Bourbon Springs. Let's raise the radar up just a bit as we go back into the radar view. And let me just point out that even on the latest scan, we can see that great rotation showing up. It's weakened just a bit. The colors aren't as bright, but nonetheless. So we're getting a little slower, those deeper colors. But nonetheless, the rotation is there. That is the reason that the tornado warning is out for northern parts of Nelson County. Bourbon Springs, Withrow, those would be areas. This is going to go very close to Bardstown as it continues its movement to the east and southeast at about 20 miles an hour. If you have folks in Bardstown, you might want to give them a call. In fact, Andy, I'm going to kick it over to you so I can call my parents real quick.
I think you should. Fair enough. Okay, Kevin, thank you. A couple of things to point out on this right now. I've got this on the hail portion of the storm, which, of course, is going to be in the northern area. Any spin-up tornado that would occur is going to be on the southern edge of all this. So northern Nelson County, the hail potential, Brownington, Lenore, Lotus, Cox's Creek. To the south, then, more of the spin-up potential, which would be from Cox's Creek south to Samuels and just north of the city of Bardstown. Bardstown is right on the edge of the tornado warning, and if you can see, we just had another scan and have shifted everything just a few miles to the east. So now we're looking with the core of the hail more over Lenore, and then again also towards Cox's Creek. I would also include a very small part of southwestern Nelson County. This would be well south of Taylorsville Lake, but the southwest corner, not of Nelson County, of Spencer County, near to the south and west of Taylorsville Lake. All right, more information from what's been going on out in Harrison County. That has been the one area where tornadoes have been confirmed to have touched down. We've had individual confirmations of 4 touchdowns in eastern Harrison County. Ryan Hoke has shown you some of the damage in fields near New Middletown. Most recent report is that up to 5 houses have sustained at least some damage from those tornadoes. Fortunately, no injuries, as there's been good lead time on these tornado warnings, and so people have had ample opportunity to escape the immediate path of the storm. So that's great news on that. Also, here, this is just from the National Weather Service. This is with the storm in Nelson County, that just above 3,000 feet, rotation is strengthening. You get much below that, and that's when you really get the potential for something to drop down. So you folks in the central parts of Nelson County right now need to be going to your safe place. Kevin?
Yeah, let's get back to that storm. It is the most ominous on radar. The tornado warning continues for Nelson County, and you can see it. The rotation, while it appears to be weakening just a bit for us on the radar, as the radar goes up, we're still seeing the greater rotation, according to the Weather Service has pointed out. So this is still the zone right along the Bourbon Springs toward Withrow. That takes you very close to the Bardstown area. In fact, just the northernmost suburbs as this passes through. So you've got to be in your tornado safe place at this point across northern and central parts of Nelson County. That includes areas from Cox's Creek down to Bardstown. If you are in that zone, you need to be in your tornado safe place. That's an area of most concern. The radar, again, showing that rotation showing up in that area. I'm going to go back to our home view, and we'll zoom back in as we pan around the storms. That's the only tornado warning that we have, but notice the hook on that. Tough to tell with all the warnings. Additional warnings pushing to our east toward Lexington, but as we go closer in, you will notice what we're watching here across Nelson County unfold, similar as we did across Harrison County. The large hail on the northern side, the tornado warning to the south with that hook coming in. We have wind feeding into it, and we also have the outflow coming out of it. That's very close to Cox's Creek, not too far north from Bardstown. Let me center up the radar view so you can get a better idea. And then the large hail, not too far from the Lenore area as you push into extreme northern Nelson County. Let me zoom into that. We'll take it piece by piece. The first piece is going to be this large hail threat. As we look far to the north, again, the county line, this is Bullitt, Spencer, Nelson. There's High Grove. I kept calling that Highview a second ago. It's High Grove. I know it so well. Right up 31E. So as you work your way, large hail, not too far from that area there, just south of High Grove. That's the large hail zone with this storm. As that pushes to the north, so all of this is going to sink close to the south and southeast. As we drag the radar down and show you a little bit farther to the south what's happening, we'll stop the radar and then pan it down. That is the area that we have the largest hail falling, very close to High Grove, just south of there. As you push down to another couple miles south, we'll just zoom it out, you can see right along 150 is where we're going to have the hail falling at this point, but the greatest rotation is areas south of that, pushing across parts of Cox's Creek and then areas toward Bardstown. So we're just going to kind of pan the radar up. There's Old Louisville Road there. 31E takes you right up into Glen Mary, Fern Creek. There's Cox's Creek. And again, you can see this is the hook. So we've zoomed in so tight. Additional thunderstorm warnings revised to the south, but that's the zone of rotation. We go back to our tools to show you the velocity on that, and you'll note there it is, strengthening with those brighter colors. Winds increasing just a bit. The radar's in Fort Knox, so you can imagine these are the outbound winds. The green are the inbound winds. It would be this area that we would have the greatest rotation. Not seeing a whole lot of green on that at this point, but still, the rotation is there. Very strong winds, nonetheless, being picked up by the radar in that area. We go back to our home view, and you'll note that we still have showers and thunderstorms pressing across Nelson, Spencer County. Severe thunderstorm warnings being revised for that area, but the tornado warning is across Nelson County. We can revise the banner, no longer including Bullitt. This is Nelson County. As we take a look at what else is going on across the region as far as hail is concerned, we can look inside that storm and kind of pick out how large the hail may have been or will be. And you can see upwards of golf ball and in some cases tennis ball size hail through that storm as it tracks off to the east. That really is the only storm, looking around the viewing area, of major concern. Two reasons behind it: the large hail and the potential for the tornado. We've had no confirmed reports of tornadoes out of Nelson County. Hopefully we can get on the phone with the dispatch there and see if they have any kind of damage coming in. But at this point, it's radar indicated, and the radar certainly does indicate it and still does as we zoom in a little closer. Andy, I see you're looking at that same storm. Let's go over and get an update from you.
Yeah, I saw a couple of the scans on the precipitation, and for the first time really all afternoon, I had seen some rainfall wrapping around. There was that hook echo. It is not as pronounced now, but where I've got the arrow, which is basically between Cox's Creek and Bourbon Springs, or really Cox's Creek and Bardstown for all practical purposes, that's the area to watch. It should just now be crossing Highway 150 heading towards the east. So that is the area of Nelson County that I think under the next couple of minutes would be the greatest concern. If there's going to be a tornado, it's going to be in that area just south of Cox's Creek and north of Bardstown.
And maybe, I mean, look at it on the velocity just behind you there. You can see it, Andy, on that screen. But you can see right along Cox's Creek, this is to the north, but Andy's pointing out that the greatest threat of rotation is just south. You can see for this zone, and there you see that, a new severe thunderstorm warning coming out. But the greatest rotation with that storm to our south is going to be just south of Cox's Creek. And let me take you down because I want to point this out. Again, life-threatening weather in progress across parts of Nelson County. Cox's Creek to the north, there you see the rotation pushing across parts of Bourbon Springs, moving toward Withrow. That's the zone. You're looking at a live picture. Some of our crews now making their way toward Nelson County along Bardstown Road. They'll be traveling in that direction to see as they intercept that storm pushing down 150. Again, we have a number of severe thunderstorm warnings and one tornado warning for our viewing area at this point, pushing across Nelson County. As we go back to our home view here, I'll just point out that the warnings that we have because of hail and wind, and now the tornado warning because of obviously the threat of the rotation showing up. We'll go to the radar view as opposed to the velocity, and you can see most areas clearing out just a bit. Few showers, Jefferson County, heavy downpour, southwestern parts of Scott County, thunderstorms pushing across southern Jennings County, parts of Jefferson County, Indiana. All of those are not severe. The cluster of severe thunderstorms are southern parts and eastern parts of Shelby, pushing into Spencer, and then, of course, the tornado warning down in Nelson County. We go in a little closer with that storm, showing the rotation so vividly on the radar. Once again, you've got to be in your tornado safe place. We've been going through the drill all afternoon. We jumped on the air at 2 o'clock to give an update. First warning came out less than a minute than when we were on the air. We've been on ever since. Tornado warning continues for Nelson County. Again, on the reflectivity, which is what we're looking at here, you can see heavy rain. You can see some hailstones. You can see the development of the hook in some instances, which is what this would be, inflow to the storm there. So we get that notch on the storm, and then the hook on the back side. That would be very close to Cox's Creek. The greatest rotation between Bardstown and Cox's Creek at this point would show the velocity, and that should confirm what we're seeing based on the reflectivity. And indeed, that's where we have, and you can see even brighter colors. Dive into that a little bit more as well. So just going to go in a little tighter to the rotation that we see to the south. This may be even a little closer to Bardstown than we first anticipated. You can see some of these bright colors showing up very much between Bardstown and Cox's Creek. Here's Cox's Creek at the top of your screen. There's Bardstown at the bottom. That's where you have to be in your tornado safe place. Bardstown, don't play this down because it's just to your north. It very well will be so close that you should be in your tornado safe place as well. We've got some decent winds going on all across the county, but that is where we have the greatest rotation between Cox's Creek and Bardstown at this time. Again, we have a number of crews out and about. We've got some surveying damage over in New Middletown where a tornado's touched down. Ryan Hoke is there. I promised you we'd touch base with him to see if we could get his estimation on the wind speeds there. We will do that coming up. And so give us just a couple of minutes. We will work on talking to Ryan. And we have another crew headed toward Bardstown, right along Bardstown Road, to survey the storms that are pushing through there. Very well may wind up with damage there. We don't know. But the fact is, the storms on radar are severe and, in fact, tornadic, where we have that rotation. Andy Weingarten is standing by. Andy, I know you've been looking at some stuff for further development later in the day. Been watching the stuff out to our west. That seems to have fizzled, but we can't let our guard down just yet.
No, not completely, but right now there's very little going on out to the west. If anything, they've probably weakened a little bit compared to what we showed you about 30 minutes or so ago, but I'll get you there in a moment. I've kind of highlighted that area again in Nelson County, now to the southeast of Cox's Creek near Highway 162 in Nelson County. That's the area. It's between Cox's Creek and Bardstown and a little bit east. That's number one. On the new severe thunderstorm warning that encompasses portions of eastern Nelson, southern Spencer, Anderson, Washington counties, wind speeds up to 70 miles an hour. Those would be straight line winds with those storms, potentially some large hail out there as well. All right, let's take a view out to the west because we don't want to let our guard down for later on this evening. We'll take this out a little wider and show you again, not very much going on out in western Kentucky. In fact, they have faded. There is nothing out there right now. Now, one of two things could be happening. We could be still priming the atmosphere out there, which really not much has gone on yet for further development. Another possibility, and we'll have to look at some upper level data for this, is that the atmosphere is becoming capped. It's becoming a little warmer in the upper levels of the atmosphere, almost too warm, more of a normal summer pattern out to the west, where things tend to, this time of year, even though you get really hot, you get really humid, you don't always get the thunderstorm development out in those areas because it's not cold enough in the upper levels. Remember, we've been talking about this heat wave down in Texas and Oklahoma. Some of that hot air may be spreading northeast, and that may be what's going on right now in western Kentucky, because it appeared earlier that right about now, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Illinois, western Kentucky, that was going to be the prime area. What apparently has happened is it was a couple of hours earlier, and we've developed it now more localized. So that is still something to watch for later on tonight. The tornado watch is still in effect. But at least right now, with nothing going on to the west, I would suspect that things may be improved. It's not a guarantee, but we'll keep an eye out on that.
There's always a chance to break that cap even later in the day. So through the evening hours, once we see that sun set and the atmosphere starts to cool and that front gets a little closer to us, we could very well wind up seeing storms kind of explode out ahead of that. Still yet to be determined, because what happens in these scenarios is that it's all hinges on what's happening now.
Right.
So we take this minute by minute, and as we get these storms out of the area, we'll be able to better regroup and come up with a forecast of what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
In the meantime, let's jump back in. We're still looking at the potential for hail here, so we switch that back over to reflectivity. And I want to dive in. Let's go max 1, and as we jump in just a little bit tighter here, to the velocity, I'll point out where we have the greatest rotation showing up. You can see the warning being pared back just a bit. So it's north of Bardstown at this point. And there you see the greatest rotation. And that's going to be just off to the southeast of Cox's Creek, in between 150 Bardstown Road and 162. So that's pushing through. That's where we have the greatest rotation with that storm. That takes it just north of Bardstown at this point. So that's the area that we will continue to watch for the greatest part of as far as if any rotation is going to touch down, or if a tornado is going to touch down. And then we go back to our radar and just show that the largest hail threat is just north of there, across the northern part. So approaching the Bloomfield area. If you are in Bloomfield, you should be on guard for the potential for some of that larger hail moving in your area. There you see it there. That hail moves east, and then the greatest part of the rotation on that hook likewise moves east. Sort of a rural area for parts of Nelson County. We get a little to the south. Here's Bardstown way down here, by the way. So the bigger part of that storm is now past Bardstown, but just off to the north, and then that's going to slide to the east, and that's where we will continue to see it. Again, you see the inflow notch there, and then the hook. This is where we would have the greatest potential to see a tornado if it were going to happen across parts of Nelson County. Again, I'll show you that on the velocity just so you can confirm that and point that out. And there it is. And you can sort of see the winds where they're together. That's where we have the greatest potential for rotation. It's sort of broad. It's kind of across the entire area. Whereas when we were looking at it earlier for parts of Harrison County, it was very tight. I mean, it was literally one spot, so you knew that's where it was. This is very broad in its rotation, but anywhere in this zone would be where we would have the threat to see some of those stronger winds and the potential for a tornado touchdown. So the tornado warning continues for Nelson County, and the expiration time on that is until 4:30 this evening. Again, on the big board, you can see another 24 minutes on the tornado warning for Nelson County. Bullets out of that. And we also have severe thunderstorm warnings for Nelson, Spencer, and Washington for almost another hour. And then less than 10 minutes for the other warnings that we have. So those are the warnings currently. We have a number of areas who've experienced gusty winds and heavy rain. We have also had a number of areas that have seen thunderstorms pass by throughout the afternoon. Let me show you what the storms look like as they move through. We'll put it into motion here as we play the storms. You can see the clusters. Boom. Push through. Severe weather aiming right at Louisville. Moved through with large hail. Before it got to Louisville, we had a tornado warning in Harrison County. It touched down. It did damage. Near Elizabeth, Indiana, we also had some pretty ominous skies. This is what it looked like there as the skies darkened and the clouds swirled. That's a mesocyclone, we call it. It's tough to tell, but it certainly looks like something's on the ground. You usually keep your eyes to the top, the base of the cloud, and then to the ground. Sometimes you can see it connect, other times you can't. Depends if it gets enough dust or debris in it. But that certainly appears to be a tornado that is on the ground near Elizabeth, Indiana, and more likely the storm that touched down very close to New Middletown earlier today across parts of Harrison County. Again, that was with these storms. Watch closely. Here they come. Boom, right there. They passed by Harrison County, moved through Floyd County, southern Floyd, and then pushed into Jefferson County with large hail. We escaped much of the wind here in the city, though we did have a few trees down. We noted that earlier as well. But now, as these storms continue their movement to the east, the cluster that caused all the damage in New Middletown and Harrison County, those are near Lexington. The ones closest to us were trailing thunderstorms that developed across parts of Meade and northern Hardin County, and now those are in Nelson County, likewise causing some problems with the tornado warning. I'm going to push stop for now as we go back inside that storm. I'll take you down a little closer into Nelson County, just pointing out that we have thunderstorms that are severe with the potential for large hail. That's been the main threat. There's still a big question mark on what happens the rest of the day. Still looking at a lot of data coming in, and frankly, we've been on here with nonstop weather coverage, so we'll have to regroup coming up in a few minutes. We'll get this tornado warning out of here. We'll have a little bit of time before the 5 o'clock show to prepare our forecast, but at this point, there's still a chance for some thunderstorms later this evening. Still rain in our weekend forecast, and the potential for even some thunderstorms that could be strong to our south on Saturday afternoon. So that's just a sign of things to come. Today is going to be the roughest day. Can assure you of that with what we have unfolding now. Again, here's a close-up view. The Bluegrass Parkway goes from Elizabethtown over to Lexington. You see that pushes through Nelson County and very close to the Bardstown area, not too far from Bloomfield either. The strongest part of that storm is going to go close to the Bluegrass Parkway. In fact, let's just zoom in a little tighter for that area. Bloomfield being hit hard with heavy rain, the potential for hail at this point. And then as we zoom into that tornado warning, you can see we're still seeing the little hook on the storm. That's moving across Bloomfield down towards 62, and then the hail threat would be very much near the Bloomfield area. As far as the rotation is concerned, as how tight that is, we look at the velocity for that, and as we look at that, you can still see some of that, the couplet right there. And again, it's sort of broad rotation, but that's the strongest, and that's going to be sliding to our south and east. Again, the tornado warning continues for Nelson County for another 20 minutes until 4:30. That's the northern part. That includes areas close to the Bloomfield area and just south of there. So that's where you should be taking cover if you are in Nelson County. Let's go back to our home view and just point out that most people are in the clear at this point from severe weather. The cluster of thunderstorms to our south and east is the cluster that we are concerned with. We also have thunderstorms pressing across parts of Shelby and Franklin counties. Those are moving out, and those are weakening. So really, the only thunderstorms of note or of concern happen to be the ones across parts of Nelson County. Eventually, those slide to the east as well and will be over toward the Lexington area within the next 45 minutes or so. So we got another 20 minutes on the warning. It's just going to be moving a little on the slow side because it's only forward motion. Really, it's moving to the east at about 20 to 30 miles an hour at best. So this thunderstorm, still no confirmed reports of tornadoes. And from our news desk, I haven't heard any reports out of Nelson County of any damage. So some good news. I can tell you that we have a crew on the way just to check for ourselves. And at this point, no damage being reported out of Nelson County. So some good news there. Ryan Hoke is with some damage. He's over in New Middletown. I want to check in with him. And we'll see his expert opinion on how strong those winds have been throughout the afternoon. We know we had some damage out of New Middletown. We've seen that. We've seen your videos and your hail pictures coming in as well. So it's been tornado damage, most likely, out of New Middletown, and hail damage in a number of other places from across the entire region. We have additional thunderstorms that are popping up on the radar. Northern Jackson County down into southern Scott County, northern parts of Jefferson, Indiana, and then, of course, the severe cluster across parts of as we work down into Shelby and Spencer, Nelson counties. That's where we have the strongest thunderstorms, obviously, at this point. Ryan Hoke, jump on in here with me, pal, and let's talk about the storms that we saw back in Harrison County and New Middletown. I saw you talking to Leslie, and when you looked at that damage, from your expert opinion, how fast would the wind speeds have been?
Kevin, you know, I've seen a number of tornadoes over the years. In fact, I think I'm up to 13 now, and that appeared to me to be at least 100-mile-per-hour winds, Kevin. I would say, and I hate doing this because you're not supposed to, but I would say at least EF2 damage with that storm here in New Middletown in this area. The house damage that we saw from a distance, the amount of tree damage we saw the twisting of the limbs, and the cornfields that were adjacent to the road were scoured pretty well. You know, we're not talking about like dirt picked up, but all of the corn was flattened and then thrown in some cases. So that to me argued for at least 100-mile, 111-mile-per-hour winds or higher. The National Weather Service in Louisville obviously has to make the official determination on that, but all the years that, you know, Kevin, you and I have storm chased together, that's what kind of experience I've gathered, is being able to at least try to judge that.
Yeah, well, just like them, we're meteorologists, and we can look at that damage and give at least an estimate. The official word will come from the Weather Service. Ryan, tell me where you're headed now. I know some of the damage. Recap it for us. We saw a cornfield that had damage. We know several homes have damage. What other damage do we know of out of Harrison County?
We at least know of some other power lines down and some other tree damage. Right now, we're heading southeast of New Middletown, Indiana, to track that. We should be there in about the next, looks like, minute or two, so we'll be able to share that with you once we get there.
Okay, we'll check back in with you in just a couple of minutes. Let's get back to the radar. We are still keeping an eye on the storm down in Nelson County. Obviously, this one still showing signs of rotation. Let me zoom back into that a little closer. And as we get tighter in on this storm, you're still going to see the hook that's been pronounced across parts of Nelson County. Again, when you see that storm hook on the reflectivity, something has to cause that. That's inflow winds. There you see the notch inflowing into the storm, and then the outflow on the backside. That would be the rotation very close to Maud. Of course, it's just about to move out of the tornado warning. The warning is along the county border, and that's where we see the strongest rotation. To the velocity we go on that, and as we check the velocity, you're going to see that is where we have a new tornado warning now coming out. So we, again, just kind of keeping an eye on exactly what we're watching. We'll get to Scott in just a minute. We've got a new tornado warning I need to give the details out on, so Scott's standing by with more in a second. But this is the latest tornado warning. It includes Nelson and Washington in our viewing area. That's until 5:15. That includes the Willisburg area. It's going to be north of Springfield. It's a continuation of that same storm we've been tracking across Nelson County. Again, We have a crew headed that way. The rotation seems to be tightening just a bit on that storm. We certainly see a more pronounced notch on that storm, and it's going to move right across the Willisburg area, eventually toward Cornishville. Again, moving across not the most populated area of Washington County, but the northern part of Washington County. It's passed by Cox's Creek. It's moved past the Bloomfield area. The hail size seems to have diminished somewhat, but the heavy rain and hail is right across the Bluegrass Parkway, and now the threat of the intense wind and the rotation is crossing the county line, moving into Washington County. So coming up in just a couple of minutes, the storm tornado warning for Nelson County will be allowed to expire. Andy, I see you looking at some other details on that storm. Anything to add?
Yeah, it looks like the core of the rotation would be very close to the city of Maud, which, as you mentioned, is right on the, I guess, Nelson-Washington County line, moving east at about 20 miles per hour. Some folks impacted, it would be just south of Willisburg. They would be impacted. Maud would be impacted, and also looks like Pollen and Hardesty would be impacted by that storm. So those are the communities in very rural Washington County that we'll have to keep an eye out on. There is still indications of a rotation on that very close to Maud, right on the county line, and again moving east at about 30 miles per hour. And one thing that we're going to keep an eye on, look just to the south where I've shown the reflectivity, just to the south of Maud. There's another little cell that's trying to develop there on Highway 55, and it's been moving northeast. If the two storms merge, that's another potential sign that you could get something that would touch down. So I'm watching to see if those two actually come together. Kevin?
Yeah, that storm merger is a big deal, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. These are the list of warnings we have. Many of them expired. The one most concerning is the tornado warning out of Nelson and Washington counties. Nelson will soon be allowed to be expired from that in just a moment. And of course, Bullitt County, it's already out of your area, so while there's 13 minutes technically left on that warning, it's been replaced. You can see additional thunderstorm warnings for across the area. If you look across the region, you still see some sun breaking out here in Louisville. That's not the case to our south. Washington County, you've got to be in your tornado safe place. That's the center area. That's away from windows. If it's a basement, that's better. If it's a ground floor, that's okay. If it's a bathroom, that's fine. If it happens to be under a stairway or in a closet, that's okay too. You're under a warning, which means it's happening now. You have no more time. You've got to seek your shelter immediately. We are all under this tornado watch until 9 o'clock. Temperatures have come down where we've had rain-cooled air, but they're warming and more instability will occur back out to our west. The winds, they're kicking up in places. We had thunderstorms that raced across the area earlier. We continue to track them off to our south with the tornado warning in far eastern Nelson County, as well as the northern part of Washington County. This is a tornado warning that you need to be paying close attention to, and we had one earlier today across Harrison County. Here's why you got to pay attention. These storms mean business today. We've got a live picture from Harrison County. You can see some of the damage occurring. Looks like the tin roof ripped off of the barn there. We've had a number of areas where we have seen damage today. This is K&K Farm Equipment, and you could see that it has peeled back the metal sheeting on that roof. Number of trees down, power lines down in that same area. We are just off to the south of New Middletown in Harrison County in this picture. Again, that's K&K Farm Equipment. Some damage done to what appears to be a hay barn there with some equipment inside. Back to the radar we go, and as we continue to track the storms in central Nelson County, or excuse me, in central Kentucky down into Nelson County, they're moving out of and pushing into northern Washington County. I'm going to stop the radar. We'll take you on a little tour of what's happening, give you the idea of the greatest rotation. Let me zoom in and then we'll put a stop to it. The tornado warning is for Nelson and Washington counties for about another 50 minutes. Nelson County, you're just about in the clear. The bulk of that storm is now moving out. We still have some heavy rain and what may be some hail in extreme northeast Nelson County. Let's put the radar to a stop. And then again, that storm merger Andy was talking about. Let me lift this up just a bit and I'll sort of telestrate on here and show you what we're watching even behind the scenes. So what we have in Nelson County has been this storm has moved from Cox's Creek, in between Cox's Creek, Bardstown, over toward Bloomfield. Now it's moving into parts of northern Washington County. When we look at this, we have winds coming in at different directions and different directions with height as well. That's what we call shear, both wind shear because of direction and because of speed. Well, we have enough shear in the atmosphere today and enough wind speed and enough instability. This is more like a spring scenario than a summertime scenario. And we knew this. We talked about it all day yesterday. We flagged the alert day on Wednesday for today because we thought severe weather would be likely. Now, we're watching this thunderstorm off to our south. When we have mergers of thunderstorms, that creates a zone of its own to where it collides and then the winds can rotate around that. So it's a little more complex than that, but what happens in that would be we would see a greater threat potential for stronger rotation. Let's take a look at the velocity and see if anything's indicating that. And we just keep kind of checking back. And again, you can see that rotation still showing up. Again, it's fairly broad in some sense. There's, we don't see that sharp green and red side by side that are bright, very much like we did over in New Middletown. But what we can see is that there's strong wind and some broad rotation in that same zone. And that's approaching the Willisburg area. Andy, any new information on that I'm not seeing?
No, you've pretty much got it. Just want to let you know that the Nelson County portion of the tornado warning expired. So this is now clearly a Washington County event and more in the northern and western parts of the county as we're watching what appears to be the greatest threat just to the west of, east of Maud, west of Pollen, if I've got that right, and also just to the southwest of Brush Grove, west of Willisburg. So it's a pretty rural area of Washington County, but that would be the area of greatest concern. And then just north of that, along and just south of, looks like Highway 555, I guess is what that is. That's where the hail would be. That would be the largest hail. So storm structure is still there. The hail in the northern part and the southern southwestern part of the storm, the greatest threat of rotation. As long as that structure remains in place, the threat of a tornado is still there. Kevin?
Yeah, we can still see it tightening just a bit on the radar. You see the green starting to deepen just a bit. So that is the zone that we're watching. Again, I want to keep this radar up behind me, and we'll keep the radar up, but I also want to go over to Ryan Hoke. Ryan is standing by over in Harrison County. He's found even more damage. We have seen a number of areas that have been hit hard from New Middletown and now just south of there. Ryan, tell me what you have seen.
All right, Kevin, we're just southeast of New Middletown, Indiana here. We're along Peyton Road in a neighborhood back here, and this is quite honestly some of the most substantial damage that I've seen. Apologize for the lens there. Let's take you on a little tour here. You'll notice that is one mobile home that has been overturned. You can see the wheels on top, and it has been very, very heavily damaged, destroyed, in fact. We'll take you over to the right here, and you'll notice another mobile home that has been turned over completely. Wheels on top once again to get your bearing. I know you're just looking at these images for the first time. You see the cinder blocks just ahead of it here. There's a little deck that was built that was leading up to this mobile home here. And it is just very, very heavily damaged. We've not heard any word yet about injuries on this. We're getting ready to talk to the folks. We just arrived here on the scene seconds ago, and folks are picking up the pieces. Notice the tree damage in the background there. Some of these limbs appear to be a little bit twisted. That is a telltale sign of what looks to be tornado damage. And if we look down on the base of the tree here, there is what appears to be aluminum, potentially aluminum siding from one of these mobile homes that is wrapped around the tree. Another telltale sign of a tornado here.
And oddly, it looks like I see a bathtub in the distance there. Ryan, anybody hurt there?
We've not heard about any injuries yet. We're getting ready to interview some folks here on the scene. We'll get more information, and we'll come back.
Yeah, I tell you, if you'll go, just make sure nobody was hurt. We're curious about that, and then we'll talk about this storm in Nelson County. We'll come right back to you in just a couple minutes. Okay. Let's jump back in. Again, we'll raise the flag again. Just what you're seeing out of Harrison County there. That's the whole reason we always say, if you have time, and you do have time, get out of the mobile homes. They're just not attached to the ground. They're not sturdy enough, even for 100-mile-per-hour winds. And I'm estimating on what the winds may have been. I don't know. I haven't seen the damage completely. But they're just not safe structures. The same story's unfolding across parts of Washington County, near Willisburg, and I know there are mobile homes there too. So you're going to have to make sure as this continues to tighten just a bit. It's not quite the same type of signature we saw back near New Middletown and Harrison County, but nonetheless, it's strong, and we are seeing that rotation, and you are under a tornado warning. You've got to make sure you get to the safest place. A mobile home is not it. You've got to get in the basement if you have one, and if you don't, that's okay. Just get to the lowest level in the interior, away from windows, and let these storms pass. They are packing a punch today. They've had large hail. The hail threats come down in a big way. Earlier today, if you're just joining us, we had upwards of baseball-sized hail falling in places. We'll have a complete recap of that coming up on the news tonight. We've also had tornadoes. We had the one touchdown in New Middletown, and in fact, we may have had more than one. It appears like we've had a number of tornado touchdowns, whether it was the same tornado or multiple ones. Odds are it was the same tornado touching down multiple times, at least from my expert opinion watching the radar, but we have a number of areas with damage across parts of Harrison County. I wouldn't be surprised to see some damage coming out of Washington County, Kentucky, with this storm as it's moving through as well. The tornado warning here continues for just a bit longer. As you can see, it stretches over toward Harrodsburg, over through parts of Anderson County, just off to the south of Lawrenceburg. So we have a number of areas under severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings just pushing out of the area as we speak. I'm going to go back to our home view because really this is the cluster of storms that we're watching in our viewing area. Let me put the radar on as opposed to the velocity, and you can see confined to just this area. Now what we will be watching are these other thunderstorms, especially to the south as they develop. Southern Nelson County, parts of LaRue County, lifting back up not far from Fern Creek, a downpour. But none of those are severe at this point. We'll see if we can tap into enough instability. Been worked over a decent amount across the metro area. The thunderstorms that would have the greatest potential to strengthen would be the ones to our south on the southern flank here. We've also been keeping an eye on what's happening back out to our west. Those thunderstorms have fizzled. Still too early to tell whether they will really pick back up later this evening once we start to lose some of the heating. We've already seen temperatures back out that way push back up into the low 90s. So it's very hot out there. We could have capped the atmosphere, and once that cap starts to break, the temperature just above the surface, we start to cool that down a little bit. We could very well see more thunderstorms fire up. So that's something we'll be watching for the later hours through the evening. Now, meanwhile, the thunderstorms to our south are still producing a lot of heavy rain and a lot of wind, but the threat for the tornado continues across parts of Nelson County, out of there, but now into northern Washington County. And again, Andy?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Kevin. Just to recap the warnings that are going on right now, we have still have the one tornado warning that is primarily now Washington County until 5:15. That still has another 45 minutes to go. Other severe thunderstorm warnings still cover the extreme southeast corner of Nelson County, adjacent areas of Anderson and Washington counties. And that severe thunderstorm warning is in effect until 5 o'clock. So those are the only warnings that are in effect right now. The main batch, again, Willisburg up towards Tatum Springs, and then a little further north from there towards Johnsonville. Those are the areas that have the greatest risk of some high winds, hail, and then the southern part of that is where the rotation is continuing. So those are the two warnings that are out. One, the severe thunderstorm warning until 5 o'clock, tornado warning for Washington County until 5:15. Kevin?
But no damage.
No damage that we know of so far. That's great news. Yeah,
good news there. Certainly still a little ominous on the radar, especially when we look at that velocity scan, and especially after you see what we've seen out of Harrison County. I mean, the tornadoes touchdown there happens to be a very rural part of Harrison County, and Harrison County in general is fairly rural, but down toward New Middletown, very small town, quaint town, awesome people. I know several of them. In fact, I feel like I know about half the town there. But the fact is that we have had damage. This is a live picture, and you can see some of the roofing and the tin still blowing around. Again, that's K&K Farm Equipment, not too far from Corridon, down toward New Middletown. And you can see on the back side of that, complete collapse of the structure, whatever that may have been. But now it's just a pile of sticks. Some of the farmers out there taking a look at that damage. And you know, oftentimes when we have high winds like this, and especially when there's a tornado, you can see that tin wrapped around things, and we've seen that from the trees to the power poles to a number of places, and in some cases it's just completely gone. So that's something that we'll keep watching. Again, you're looking at damage out of New Middletown, Indiana at K&K Farm Equipment. That was one place of several that has experienced damage. Ryan Hoke is on the scene of what is two mobile homes completely flipped over. We're going to go back to him in just a few minutes. Outside in Louisville, we are clear. To our south, not so much. The tornado warning is for Nelson County, expired, and now into Washington County. There you see Willisburg. We've got a severe thunderstorm warning and a tornado warning that includes Mackville, Battle, Cardwell, over toward Willisburg. Strongest winds pushing across the northern third of Washington County, Kentucky. Let me take you on the radar and show you the velocity on that. As we look inside that storm, the rotation again fairly broad, but nonetheless some strong winds are possible, anywhere from Tatham Springs down toward Willisburg and Cardwell. So that general zone across the region. Let me go back to our home view. We'll zoom out. I'm going to put the radar back up, show you what's transpired throughout the day today. You'll see this is the velocity, so that gives us a really good indicator of wind speed and direction. Here's the reflectivity. Where are the storms now? Scattered Indiana, scattered Kentucky. The only cluster we have across Washington County. That's moving out of the viewing area. Let me eventually put this into motion, and I'll point out what we were watching right at 2 o'clock today. And if you can watch the time, you'll see thunderstorms started to develop. We jumped on the air right at 2 o'clock just to give an update. At 2:01, the warning came out for Harrison County. We watched that storm track across parts of central Harrison County, just south of Corydon. You can see it there on the radar. That really did a number as it blasted parts of New Middletown. Ryan Hoke is standing by. And Ryan, I've seen the two mobile homes behind you that are flipped over. And I wanted to ask, and I asked this a while ago, but was anybody inside? And hopefully nobody was injured if they were.
Here, Kevin, and thankfully nobody was injured. We are happy to report that, but obviously emotions are running high right here. This is very fresh. We are here on the scene, very shortly after this happened. These folks here behind me are still trying to pick up the pieces of what is left here, and the homeowner does not want to go on camera, understandably, because of all that is going on and all the thoughts that are probably going through this family's head right now as they continue to look through and try to put things back together after this storm ripped them apart. So you've got the one mobile home that was flipped over and is still somewhat intact here on the right. We pan over to the left, and this mobile home right here, unfortunately, is just in not any sort of shape at this time. It is destroyed. And we were able to ascertain that there were some folks in the mobile home to the right that we just showed you. But again, there were no injuries. We are thankful to report that here today, Kevin, but there's going to be a lot of rebuilding and a lot of rebuilding of lives here over the next several weeks, Kevin.
Yeah, that is so sad, and I know it, part of our job has to be to show and know that damage, because it really does help. I know for that family it's not very comforting to A, have us there, but B, it's so, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of at a loss for words, but it is so helpful to us to know the damage that goes along with what this radar is. I mean, this is real science at play today, and we thought something like this could happen. Going back and looking at that radar imagery with what happened will be something that we study for months to come. Ryan, I know the people are shaken, but I'm so grateful that they were not injured. It could have turned out so much different.
It really could have. And I mean, in this kind of situation here, obviously we always tell people time and time again, make sure that you're in a sturdy structure, and not everybody has access to that. So, everybody needs to make sure they're safe in a situation like this, and folks do the best they can. And unfortunately, the property was damaged today, but fortunately, lives were not. You can pick up things, you can rebuild them, but people you can't. And that's what's good about this situation, is everybody can walk away from this today and say, I survived that, and they'll have that as life experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I know how resilient those people are across Harrison County. I already see a number of them out helping out, family and friends coming to the rescue there. Ryan, we'll check back in with you in just a bit. Scott Reynolds has been in the newsroom throughout the afternoon as well. He's been looking through a lot of our social media posts. We've had a number of reports sent in from viewers from across southern Indiana and Kentucky. While we still have the tornado warning for Washington County, and we are watching that rotation push just north of the Willisburg area, we'll keep an eye on that. I want to go over into the newsroom with Scott to get an update on what you have coming in the newsroom. Scott.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kevin, for keeping us updated on every little thing that's happening out there. That's a big thing to those folks who are getting hit by this storm. And we want to thank everyone for sharing what they captured on camera today all across Wave Country as this storm moved on through. We'll show you a few of them right now. And we want to start for you in the North Vernon area where they got some of the hail there and brought it inside. Andrew Klesch sending us this, about dime-size hail there. And take a look at this from Corden, Indiana. This one is really crazy. As folks are watching that come at them, I mean, it'll take the Weather Service and Kevin and Ryan and folks like that to tell them what they're looking at, but they think they're looking at a possible tornado coming at them with those dark clouds coming down to the ground. And then we move on to Seymour, Indiana. This hail, unlike anything we've seen so far today. We've heard reports, though, of up to tennis ball size hail out there, surely egg size. And these stones were found just north of Comiskey Park in Seymour, and the family there putting them in the fridge to save for later so they can talk about it all day long and maybe tomorrow too. And this is scary. Katie Dixon sent us this from Laconia, Indiana. Again, as they're watching this video, they got to be believing that maybe a tornado is coming right at them. And again, that's Laconia, Indiana. We thank everybody for getting the video and pictures to us, and of course we always want you to be safe during these moments, but some of that stuff was pretty far away, so they were safe there and had their cameras out, Kevin. And you know, you called for this supercell. You said it could be in the afternoon and also again 9 o'clock or so at night, so we're hoping that second batch doesn't hit. Yeah, we're working on that now. In fact, Andy's going to spend some time here to really dive into our evening forecast. Since we've been on the air all afternoon, we've been just checking pieces of data here and there, but we'll have a complete forecast for you through this evening coming up at 5 o'clock. We have new thunderstorm warnings coming out. You can see them blinking to our south. Let me just take you to it. What a day it's been, man. We've had thunderstorm warning after thunderstorm warning, tornado warning or two, and in fact, right across the same area. Looks like the tornado warning is being replaced with a severe thunderstorm warning. Let me just go back into this and look at the velocity myself just to see if we've lost any of the characteristics of that rotation. And then as we look, yeah, there's some minor rotation showing up there, but far more a wind maker. Very heavy wind going up toward McBrayer. Of course, that's moving out of our viewing area. Willisburg, here's the county line. If you're watching over in Anderson or Boyle counties, transition toward Lexington. They'll be taking care of you as these storms approach the Lexington area. Moving out of our viewing area, our focus will now be on what's to come tonight and the damage that's already happened. So as we look ahead, we're going to stay with you right through 6:30 tonight. So it's 4:30 now. We've got a whole newscast coming up, and a lot of it's kind of geared toward weather. Most of our crews are out and about surveying the damage and reporting on what has happened from whether it's Nelson County, Washington County, over into Floyd or Harrison counties in Indiana to right here in Louisville. We've had a lot of large hail. We have had a number of reports of wind damage, especially out of the New Middletown area. So we'll check back in with Ryan coming up. We'll go back to our live camera that we have going toward Bardstown, and we'll even check in with Scott Reynolds again coming up within the next 15 minutes here. So we'll sustain our coverage right through 6:30 looking at what's happening. But the bulk of the weather is pushing out of our viewing area, and as that happens, we'll all breathe a sign of relief temporarily, at least until we can have a better understanding of what's going to come our way through the evening hours. And if we're going to see any more of these thunderstorms later this evening. We still have to bring that front closer to us, and the area of low pressure is still going to spin around even through the weekend. So it's not going to be a picture-perfect weekend by any stretch of the imagination. The good news is the greatest threat of severe weather is happening today, so we won't have to worry about that into the weekend. Go back to our radar view just to let the folks know in Willisburg, while you're still
Now, and there it goes. So it's just been canceled. I was getting ready to say, while you're still under the warning, the threat has ended, and now the warning has expired. So no tornado warnings across the area. The severe thunderstorm warning continues for northern parts of Washington County in Kentucky for just a bit longer. But outside of that, that is the only warning we have. Thunderstorms continue to develop southern Nelson County, southern LaRue County. It's not out of the question that these will grow in intensity and perhaps become severe. That's where the focus is in the short term. And then back out to our west, what will happen through the evening hours, still a question mark. Working on that forecast now as we look forward to see what may develop back out to our west. Again, area of low pressure pushing through will help dictate that. You can see on the motion of the showers and thunderstorms, those have been pushing through the area through the afternoon. Now we have tornado warnings east of the Lexington area. Let me just show you what we've looked at on the big board, because we have had a number of warnings. Many of them have expired. The tornado warnings are expired. The only severe thunderstorm warning we have, Washington County, another 20 minutes on that storm. So the good news is we're starting to see things let up just a bit and move out of our viewing area. The SkyTrack camera in Louisville showing those billowing cumulus clouds, breaks in the clouds, heating back up. Temperatures back in the upper 70s and 80s. We're in the 90s out to our west. We've been talking about the safest place to be in a tornado, and rightfully so. You saw those mobile homes that were flipped by the winds and likely the tornado that touched down near New Middletown. The reason why a tornado is more dangerous to folks in mobile homes is because those structures are not attached to the ground securely. Even if you have the tie downs on, the wind can get under it and easily snap those. And what we often find is that many mobile homes aren't tied down correctly or strong enough. So a structure is the best place to be. Once you're in a structure, in the interior part, away from the windows. If you have a basement, that's the safest. If you're on the ground level, that's okay too. If it's an interior part, it can either be a bathroom, under a staircase, maybe it's a closet. A watch means conditions are possible. A warning means it's happening now. We had several warnings earlier today. The warnings, as far as tornadoes, have expired. We're seeing some gusty winds across the area, but the winds have been the impressive part of the forecast. Both in the mid-level and at the surface, we've seen wind shear strong enough to give us the tornado warnings that we had today. I want to show some viewer pictures. I want to now recap what's happened. I'll yield to our news department to help guide some of that coverage as we look at temperatures that are in the mid-70s and our winds coming in out of the southeast at 12. We continue to watch these thunderstorms off to our south, but by all intents and purposes, the severe weather has ended across our viewing area as it now transitions over into the Lexington viewing area. We pointed out today that we have been hard hit in our viewing area with tornado damage that touched down in New Middletown. I want to show you what that looks like. And I want to go back to Ryan Hoke. Is he available? So as this unfolds, we're going to go to Harrison County and point out not only do we have one place that's received damage, but a number of places, homes and businesses, farms and communities. Ryan Hoke is standing by in New Middletown, or just south of there. And Ryan, again, as we bring you in, this is a lull between what may be more storms later, but wow, we've seen some damage today. I know the place you're at now has the mobile homes, but you also saw the homes, the cornfields. There's a lot of damage to be surveyed there in Harrison County.
Yeah, a lot of damage south of New Middletown here, Kevin. What I'm standing in front of looks to be aluminum metal siding here. It is wrapped around this medium-sized tree, and you can see how much it's wrapped around it. That is definitely a sign of rotation. So obviously we do have, at least 1 or 2 or 3 signs here of rotation from a tornado. I just finished speaking with the homeowner, and obviously she doesn't want to go on camera right now. She was not home at the time. She was actually in Corydon and came back to this scene, which is horrifying if you think about it. Thankfully, there were no injuries. We were told that the residents who were in the homes at the time were able to go to a basement in the adjacent home down at the end of the road here. That home has sustained some very minor roof damage on the corner. We were able to take the WAVE3 News drone up and get some of that footage, and you'll be seeing that here in our newscasts this evening. So not everything around here has been damaged as substantially as what you have seen. So this tornado path is very narrow. In fact, if I had to estimate it just by my eyes here, probably about maybe 50 to 75 yards here. So it was definitely a compact tornado in this area. We saw tree damage going all the way to the front. In fact, if we can see the storm tracker, you can see some of these snapped limbs. There's more debris back there too, all along this gravel road that takes you all the way back to Peyton Road. This is just southeast again of New Middletown, Indiana, here in Harrison County. Everyone is shooken up. It's very obvious that there's going to be a lot of picking up the pieces and rebuilding going on here over the next several weeks. But the folks that were inside were in a basement. They followed the absolute best advice that we can give anyone that lives in a modular building or a mobile home is get to a sturdy building, go to a storm shelter, go to a basement, get to a sturdy building with the first floor not encapsulated by doors and windows. That's what we tell folks to do all the time. These folks followed the advice and we have no injuries to report. So good news on that front here, Kev.
All right, stay right there, Ryan. I want to come back to you in just a second. I've got another warning I have to get out. This is a severe thunderstorm warning for Nelson County. Remember, we were talking about those storms to our south, and if any of them would be on the strong side, it would be the ones developing to our south. So we do now have severe thunderstorm warnings for parts of central and southern Nelson County. I want to zoom into those, give you an idea of what to expect. I'm going to go right back to Ryan. I have a couple of questions for him, but I want to make sure we let these folks know in Nelson County what's happening. Core of the storm is south of Bardstown, takes you down toward Balltown, Culvertown, pushing to the New Haven area. Happens to be my hometown. That's going to push right across Nelson County into the extreme northern part of Marion County from Loretta up to Manton. So that zone with some gusty winds and the potential for hail. Wouldn't be surprised to see a warning come out for LaRue County shortly. Looks like we've got some hail developing near the Buffalo area, just south of Hodgenville. That too will be moving to the east at about 15 to 20 miles an hour. So slow movers, heavy rain, the threat for hail and wind going on. Again, that's the current radar view. Let's bring Ryan back in. And Ryan, I want to ask where you are now. You've surveyed the damage with the mobile homes. I want to ask you, let's talk about some of the other folks you've talked to. I know you talked to Leslie and some others, but enough warning. Just take me through the day for these people because seemingly we've had one, if not more, tornadoes touch down in Harrison County. No injuries, nothing like that, which is awesome.
It's incredible, Kevin, to say the least, just because of the level of damage we've seen here. We talked about at least 100, 111 mile per hour winds potentially with this tornado that potentially rolled through here. Of course, the National Weather Service has to make that designation. But the folks I've talked to today were all going about their normal lives. A lot of them were at work. They were doing business in Corydon. They were not at home. So folks are coming home to this. They're receiving calls about their homes being damaged, arriving, seeing this, and then immediately taking it in. And that's raw right there, I'll tell you what. And the fact that nobody was injured is probably owing to the fact to not only did these folks heed the warning, but this happened in the middle of the day. Had this happened at 3 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm not sure if we would have had the same sort of outcome here.
I'm so grateful that the folks that were in New Middletown and around that area were able to get to the safe place. Boy, they did the right thing, getting in that sturdy structure. Check back in for you coming up in just a couple of minutes, Ryan. As these storms push through New Middletown, a lot of folks were out and about. They were looking. We've had a chance to ask them questions like, what was it like before the storms hit? Take a listen.
Well, I got off work and it was kind of hot, and then it started hailing up here. And then we came back outside and it was cold, and we turned around and looked in our backyard right there, and that's whenever we seen the picture that I sent you. It started swirling a little bit, and then it just disappeared.
It happens in an instant. It doesn't take long. These tornadoes can touch down. We were tracking it on radar. Law enforcement then confirmed it for us. They said, yes, we've got tornado touchdown. In fact, it's touched down multiple times in Harrison County. We've seen the damage from each of those places as well. Flattened part of a cornfield, tossed over 2 mobile homes. We've had a trailer that's been turned over and a number of trees and power lines that are down as well. We'll get you some of those power reports coming out of Duke Energy and LG&E coming up in the hours of news ahead. In the meantime, looking at the radar, we are still tracking severe weather. Now, the severe thunderstorm, the only one in our viewing area, the one up in northern Washington County, soon to expire, but the one we're watching is in Nelson County, south of Bardstown through Balltown, Culvertown. This is likewise producing some Potential for wind and hail. Those have been the main threats throughout the day. Another one across southern parts of LaRue County down toward Buffalo. Hail has been the threat today, and we have a number of you sending in your hail reports. Let's take a look at some of these images that you've shared with us throughout the day today. We've seen hail as large as baseball size in some cases. Many reports of golf ball size hail and lower hail sizes as well. And you can see some of you experienced multiple. This one's out of from Crystal, and from Salem, Indiana to North Vernon and places in between. We've seen a number of hail reports coming in throughout the afternoon hours today. Back here, you can see another one. There's a live picture. This came in from near Seymour, Indiana, up in Jackson County. That's golf ball size hail. That certainly did some damage. This wasn't too far from Kaminsky Pike. That's up not far from Seymour, as we pointed out. That was another one. Let's go through them. We've got more to show you because social media allows for open wave of reports to come in. Here's what it looked like south of Corydon. This was as you look toward New Middletown. This was likely the storm that did some of the damage we've seen Ryan Hoke surveying. These tornadoes, boy, they really are ominous looking from a distance, but imagine being in one of those mobile homes, being tipped over by it. You can see that storm certainly calls for concern with that lowering cloud from its base. That was likely the tornado that touched down. Here's some video out of Salem, Indiana. The clouds were darkening there. While you weren't under a tornado warning, Shannon sent this in anyway, and she says, hey, notice the swirl in the sky. We certainly did, along with the dark clouds. This was the formation of a collision of thunderstorms that produced large hail across parts of Washington County in Indiana. We appreciate your reports. It's certainly helpful on days like today when we're trying to confirm what's happening on radar versus what's falling from the sky. And in Jefferson County, Indiana, near Hanover, you were under a number of warnings today, from tornado warnings to severe thunderstorm warnings. And not far from Hanover, large hail hit the ground. Notice how it sort of coalesced together, multiple hail pieces banging into each other as they melted in the sky, forming these larger hail stones. Talking about doing some damage, that could certainly be the case. We're continuing to watch the radar. There's potential for some hail out of these storms in Balltown as they continue to move across central Nelson County toward Manton. That's in northwest parts of Marion County. What we're going to see is the hail threat has diminished somewhat. The wind threat's still there. 50, 60 mile per hour wind, strong enough to trigger the warning. And that's what we have. I want to show you the velocity on this. We get an idea. We don't have a whole lot of rotation showing up areas to our south, but we do have, nonetheless, some rotation, broad as it is. But the main threat's going to be some pretty gusty winds in this general vicinity as that cluster of thunderstorms makes its way to the east. That eventually pushes over across Washington County, and while Springfield missed out on the last storm to the north, this one could move very close to you. It's going to move very close to 150 as it moves through the Botland area over toward the Springfield area of Washington County. So in that area in general, again, that's the wind. Here is the reflectivity, or what we look at with the rain, and I can point that out on the radar. Heavy rain, potential for some small hail with that. Let me go down. I don't want to ignore the storm in LaRue County. It's not severe, at least not yet, but it is showing signs of strengthening. Those southern storms often strengthen the most because they're feeding off of the most moisture and the most instability, heating of the day, because they're farther to the south. So that sort of makes sense to us. Nonetheless, you can see the potential for some small hail near Buffalo. That's just now past 31E, so it's off to the east. That will move over toward Wards. This isn't too far from the Sonora area either. So right along 31E, just off to the east of I-65, where you find Sonora and Upton. So fairly close vicinity there, moving across the far southern part of LaRue County, from Hodgenville on to the south toward Buffalo. It's eventually clipping the northern part of Greene County, where you find Allendale. That'll push over into Taylor County near Campbellsville. So these areas we'll be watching, but for the most part, the only severe thunderstorm warning we have is in parts of Nelson County. All right, let's jump back around. We will look again at some of the damage that we've had into the WAVE 3 newsroom. We will look ahead to the future and show you what to expect coming up tonight with additional thunderstorms possible. You can see the hail that fell here. This was near Iroquois Park, and we had multiple reports coming in of golf ball size hail. You can see that littering the yard here, the larger hailstones, at least golf ball size, and there are a number of them. So a lot of insurance claims will be filed over the days to come as we've seen these thunderstorms push across Jefferson County even. You get into a highly populated area, you get hailstones like this near the Louisville Zoo. We're talking about dents to cars. We're talking about roofs that are going to have to be replaced. We're looking for a lot of damage that have been out of the hailstones that have pushed across parts of Jefferson County. So this is what we're looking at. We appreciate that. Let's say that again. Yeah, they don't need me to say it. You hear it. You can hear that hail hitting some of our news vehicles as it's been out as well. This was near Poplar Level Road, not far from St. X High School. Blinding rain. The most impressive part of the day has been that large hail and, of course, the tornado and the damage that's happened back out in Harrison County. While we had other tornado warnings across parts of Jefferson County, Indiana, and down into Kentucky, there have been really no reports of tornado damage in those areas. You can see we have downed trees. This was coming off of Bishop Lane, and it really just flattened that tree. You know, we sometimes see weaker trees, especially when you see them split like this. It could have just been a big burst of wind that just took it down. So not necessarily a huge widespread wind event. Again, new warnings. Let's just jump to the latest warning that we have coming out here. Our current temperature in Louisville running at 77, but Fort Knox is 90 degrees. So we're starting to see the atmosphere warm once again. North Vernon. Large hail, this thunderstorm warning just developing and coming out. We could have baseball-size hail with this one. Let me show you what that looks like. I'll go in a little bit closer to that storm over near the North Vernon area. That's just north of Lovett. If you're familiar with Jennings County, you'll know right where we're talking about. Boy, a mean storm when it comes to hail. I'm going to zoom into this and then we'll take a look closer. Again, we're just looking at the reflectivity of this, so it shows us where it is now, just south of North Vernon. Let me just put this into motion so we can see the direction that it's moving, sliding to the north and east. So it's going to move right across Indiana 3. Let me stop that, and then we'll look at the hail tracker on that. So again, large hail potential, very close to North Vernon. If you are in North Vernon, you need to be on guard for the potential for upwards of baseball-size hail with this storm. Let me zoom in with this and just point out, as we've looked at the hail size in the past, again, you can see golf ball size to tennis ball size hail. Let's go over to Ryan Hoke. Ryan?
No, that's fine. All right, Kevin, we're out here just southeast of New Middletown, Indiana, in Harrison County. I wanted to show you kind of the power of this storm and the potential tornado that we saw. This is a 2x4, and we do believe that it has been snapped at the end. We're sitting about 50 yards away from the two mobile homes that were hit here, and the debris extends at least another 20 yards back into the woods. We're talking aluminum siding, we're talking 2x4s, we're talking a lot of this pink insulation. It goes back a fair ways here. So this was a very powerful storm. Something that my photographer Greg and I just witnessed that was definitely a little scary here was there is debris still falling out of the trees, and there are branches still falling that were maybe left in a very weakened state. So as the wind gusts, you know, just the general gradient wind gusts come up here, some of this debris makes a loud noise back in the woods and sometimes even closer to some of these homes. I'll take you on a quick tour real quick of where we're at if you didn't see some of these images earlier. And two mobile homes here. You see the one in the foreground, which was turned over, and the one in the background that was turned also and destroyed. All this metal siding wrapped around the trees, that is just a sign of a potential tornado here. Kevin, you and I have been chasing for a number of years now. We've seen damage like this, and you can chase this stuff and you can see this stuff your entire life, and it never gets easier to witness this and to talk to the folks behind this. No injuries here, but we're glad to report that no injuries, but of course they're going to be rebuilding over the next several days, Kevin.
All right, Ryan Hoke live from New Middletown over in Harrison County, where we've had a number of reports of damage coming out of Harrison County. Now our focus, severe thunderstorm warnings, no tornado warnings in the viewing area, but one storm that is producing large hail happens to be one in Jennings County just south of North Vernon. That is one of several storms that we have across the area. Let me go to our home view here, and I'll just point out that while we're watching Jennings County for the potential for large hail, we also have some gusty winds. New tornado warning that's coming out for Bath and Montgomery counties. That's well out of our viewing area, so no concern for us on that latest tornado warning. But severe thunderstorm warnings to our south happen to be something we are watching. That's moving across parts of Nelson County into extreme northern Marion County, moving into Washington County. Places like Booker and Springfield should be on guard. We have complete weather coverage on this alert day right now on Wave 3 News at 5 o'clock.
With Alert Day coverage right now, this is Wave 3 News.
You've been watching it here on Wave 3 News today. Happening right now, strong severe storms moving through wave country on this Friday, possibly bringing damaging winds, hail, heavy rain, and even some reported tornadoes. A lot to get to today, and thanks for joining us. I'm Shannon Kogan.
And I'm Scott Reynolds. After several days of this beautiful weather, Kevin told us we might pay the price across wave country.
And it looks like we have the Wave 3 weather team declaring today an alert day a few days ago. And Kevin joining us once again. And you've been tracking these storms, Kevin.
Yeah.
And what do we expect over the next few hours?
Well, we'll get into that in just a second. Let me show you where we have severe weather ongoing still, and the potential for large hail and the threat for damaging winds is very real right through the next couple of hours for parts of our viewing area. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for parts of Nelson County. That's Balltown over into northern Marion County, north of Loretto and Manton. That's going to push into Washington County. Springfield should be on guard for some pretty powerful storms moving in. Additional storms not severe, southern Nelson County from Howardstown down into LaRue County off to the east of Buffalo. That moves into southern Marion County and Taylor County. We have additional thunderstorm warnings to our north across parts of southern Indiana. This one is Anderson, Jessamine, Mercer, and Washington. So that's in Kentucky. That includes a part of Washington that's in our viewing area near Willisburg. I want to zoom back out on this and take you to our north, because up around North Vernon and Jennings County, we had additional thunderstorms that were producing the potential for large hail. You can see that to our north, and let me just zoom into that across parts of Jennings County. You'll notice North Vernon right in line to see some of those stronger thunderstorms up in that direction, again, both to our north and south. So we're sort of sandwiched in between. You can see the greatest potential for that storm to produce large hail would be just south of North Vernon and just north of the Lovett area. That's going to take it right up toward Butlerville in Jennings County. That warning is until 5:30. I'll mention that on the afternoon today that we've seen, a number of storms produce damage in the way of wind and hail. We still have the potential later on this evening to see additional thunderstorms develop. At this point, what we've noted across the area are the strongest storms to our north and south. Let me take us back to our home view, and then I'm going to push on and show you how the storms evolved through the afternoon. Again, this is the current view. So we have severe weather in Jennings County, down into Nelson, as well as Washington counties of Kentucky. Those storms are being warned because we have the potential for hail and high wind. No tornado warnings currently. As we look back at what's happened over the last few hours, we've seen the evolution of these thunderstorms push through. Note across parts of Harrison County at the very beginning of this time frame. Boom. Thunderstorms developed in a hurry, rotating, producing the tornado south of Corydon near New Middletown. Additional tornado warnings wound up coming out for parts of Jefferson County, Indiana, and then areas to our south, but no confirmed tornadoes with those. The strongest that we've seen on radar and the damage that we've been able to confirm has been out of Harrison County. Let's go over to Max 2. I want to point out where we've had damage and the kinds of damage we've had. Here in Metro Louisville, it's all been hail in general, and that's been the case across much of the region for Jefferson County. We've had hail as large as egg size to baseball size hail reported out of the viewing area today. But by far, the greatest damage that we've had has been coming out of Harrison County. Wave 3 News meteorologist Ryan Hoke jumped in. The Wave 3 News storm tracker made his way over to Harrison County, New Middletown. Ryan, I know you're with a lot of damage now. Let's go through it.
Okay, so some of the damage we have, first off, is the tree damage over here. This is very fresh. You can still smell it, but obviously the big issue here was the mobile homes. We've got one mobile home behind me here that was flipped over and destroyed. Another mobile home, if we pan over the right, was also flipped over and very, very heavily damaged. I have talked to the homeowner today. They were in a basement in an adjacent house.
All right, we apologize for that. We'll check in once again with Ryan Hoke in just a little bit. You see some of the damage there in Harrison County, and our viewers have been sending us pictures from all over the area. We want to thank all of you who did that. And here's a look at some of them to give you an idea of the power of these storms that moved through. When viewer Christine Catlett saw this in New Middletown in Harrison County, she started rolling. You see the storm cloud swirling and forming into what appears to be a tornado. Hunter James Cross watched intently what appeared to be a twister forming as well. Here's another shot of what looks to be a tornado in that same area from Kaylee Smith, who told us what happened.
Well, I got off work and it was kind of hot, and then it started hailing up here. And then we came back outside and it was cold, and we turned around and looked in our backyard right there, and that's whenever we seen the picture that I sent you. It started swirling a little bit, and then it just disappeared.
This is what it looked like in nearby Lasonia when the storm was moving into the area. Damage like this flipped motor home can be seen in Mockport, Indiana. It's why this is not the place to be when there's a tornado warning. This home is on Lake Road in Corydon, Indiana, and also suffered significant damage. The storm also brought some trees down. These pictures are from the West Butyl area in Louisville. And lots of large hail, too. These massive pieces were found in Seymour, Indiana. In Jennings County, some vehicles might be damaged after this hail. Also in the metro, this is near St. X High School on Poplar Level Road. This hail was found in the Iroquois area of Louisville, but looked a little more like snow. In PRP, the storm left behind nickel-sized hail, and in Milton, Kentucky, hail littering the backyard of this home. Well, during these big weather events like today's, you really are our greatest ally because we depend on your eyes as well for the latest developments. So please keep sending us those pictures and videos from severe weather. Just use the hashtag WAVE3 News on any social media platform. And of course, we want you to always be safe. Make sure you have the free WAVE3 News weather app. More severe weather is in our forecast. Kevin will be filling us in on what to expect later tonight. But again, that app is a great way to stay informed and on top of this. And Kevin is here where he's going to be working on that forecast. And if we need to cut in, we will do so.
A change of leadership after what some are considering a long investigation at DuPont Manual High School in Louisville. A JCPS spokesperson confirming that Principal Jerry Mays will now be reassigned. WAVE3 News reporter Mike Fussell is live at Manual High with more on the next steps that will have to be taken to fill that position. And what's the latest on that, Mike?
Well, a PTSA statement says that the assistant principal will take over the day-to-day operations of the school, and the search for a new leader will begin immediately. A letter of reprimand in further review. Now, JCPS officials confirmed Jerry Mays will no longer serve as the principal of DuPont Manual High School. A move 2018 Manual graduate Quintez Brown says he'd been calling for.
Very surprising news. It's been a very long investigation. That was disappointing, actually, because we were left out of the light. We didn't hear anything about it.
Mays received a letter of reprimand in 2017 following a discussion he had with two students in his office. Mays says he was unaware he was being recorded when he used colleagues' names, speaking critically while having a discussion with the students. Brown says, as president of the Black Student Union at the time, the things that bothered him most were other comments made about racial justice and discussions related to students wishing to kneel during the national anthem at football games.
You hear comments about our principal and how he really doesn't support the club, and that made me feel a little bit more voiceless.
Friday, Manual's PTSA released more information and expressed thanks to Mays for 37 years of support, and like Brown, looked to move forward.
Our biggest goal is to make sure students have a safe environment where they can learn and they feel welcome.
As for that climate, a 2018 JCPS survey asked students, including those at Manual, if their principal was an effective leader. The results at Manual, only 58% of students agreed or strongly agreed he was, an approval rating higher than only a couple other issues on the survey, including the quality of textbooks and enjoyment of school meals.
And that PTSA statement says that Mays will be reassigned to a non-instructional position in the district. It's not clear where that will be yet. Live in Louisville, Mike Fussell, WAVE3 News.
It's good news. Hey, advocates for hundreds of thousands of Kentuckians whose dental and vision Medicaid benefits will be restored. At the beginning of the month, the Bevin administration eliminated those benefits. WAVE 3 News reporter Connie Leonard joining us with more. The move was a surprise.
It really was, Shannon. Those benefits taken away a few weeks ago after a federal judge's ruling. Now, that judge rejected Governor Bevin's plan to overhaul the state's Medicaid system. Bevin maintained the cuts were needed due to cost. That caused an uproar from many groups, from ministers to politicians, crying foul, saying the state's working poor were losing needed benefits they deserve. With the possibility of the overhaul plan coming back now, the federal government has opened a comment period where Kentuckians can give their opinion. Medicaid recipients like Krista Seymour, who has stage 4 thyroid cancer, says the state's program has saved her life, and she urges others who don't want the overhaul